messed up this year. We had those telephone arguments in May, which is unusual. Yeah, we've got questions of whether President Trump can rescind the DACA program. We've got an abortion case, the Louisiana law that requires doctors to have hospital admitting privileges. We have the Trump subpoena cases, whether a grand jury in Congress can get his financial records. We have a couple religion cases. There's a long list of things. It's going to be a really huge next several weeks for the Supreme Court.
Yeah, but it always works this way. They save the best for last, not necessarily because they want to do that, because those are the ones they really work the hardest on, maybe have disagreements about as a practical matter, but it makes the end of the term of the Supreme Court always exciting. That's Greg Storr. He is our superb Supreme Court reporter down in Washington. That's going to do it for Balance of Power for today. This is Bloomberg. I'm David Weston. We thank you very much for joining us.
At the start of every day.
At Honda, we've never looked to other car companies for inspiration. No, it's not a matter of an inflated ego. We just prefer listening to what people really need. For example, the new Honda Jazz Hybrid doesn't have the expected 6 airbags. It has 10, including one that prevents the driver and passenger from colliding with each other. And because we also listen to our conscience, all our safety features come as standard. No charge. Honda. The power of dreams.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Uncle Ben's rice, 250 grams for just £1. And our Butcher's Selection chicken breast fillets, only £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the wok? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
The wait is over. This Wednesday, it's Aston Villa v Sheffield United and Man City v Arsenal in a fantastic restart for the season. And with Now TV, you can watch both games live for just $9.99. Hold on, they're checking with VAR.
That's confirmed, it's $9.99.
Game changer. So, grab a Now TV Sky Sports Day Pass. Search Now TV Sports. 18 plus, content streamed via internet. Full terms apply.
To help keep you and your loved ones safe, TuneIn has the latest guidelines from the CDC. CDC says there are still precautions to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Wash hands often for 20 seconds and encourage others to do the same. Use hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol if no soap or water is available. For the latest stories and updates on COVID-19, search Coronavirus News on TuneIn.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search classic Game Replays to start listening.
4 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Business Week. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine. Plus, global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Messer and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Live from New York and New Jersey and streaming on YouTube. It is Monday, June 15th, 2020, week 14, working from home. And Jason, it's a day where we're seeing stocks bouncing around a lot, pairing earlier steep losses. Investors, I feel like they're mulling over a lot of things. Where we are with the virus, are we seeing another wave? And then you've got a lot of headlines out there, including some decisions from the Supreme Court.
That's exactly right. It's been a fascinating day to watch the headlines and watch, as you say, the market react to it. It also felt like a lot of investors came into the market today having seen what we all saw over the weekend, especially in many parts of the country. You know, people out and about, some wearing masks, some not wearing masks. It's just, and you see the headlines and you see the numbers and you just think, oh boy.
It's the push and pull. That's what I'm calling it on this Monday. All right, we got lots to cover over the next 4 hours. Let's get you going, though, on this Monday with a check on the trade. Here is Charlie Pellet. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday indeed, and here's what's going on. Got to begin with the Dow Jones Industrial Average. All of a sudden, you do the GIP on the Bloomberg. Sudden move higher right there. We've got the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, all advancing with the S&P up 8 now. That is a gain of 0.3%. Bottom line here, stocks have been fluctuating. We've got the Dow up 14 now. That is a gain of about 0.1%. Keep in mind that at the worst level of the day, the Dow had been down 3%, down more than 700 points. But again, a 37-point gain right now for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Again, a sudden jump here as we approach just after 2 o'clock on the East Coast. We've got the S&P up 13, as I mentioned. NASDAQ now surging by 1%, up 100 points. The 10-year is the yield 0.70%. Gold down 0.2%, 17.27 the ounce, and crude up 1.9% right now, $37 a barrel. Indeed, fast-moving markets. Recapping S&P up 15, up 0.5. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week here on a Monday. Let's set the Business Week agenda because we need to figure out what's going on in this trade, what's on investors' mind. We've got the perfect team assembled to do that. In the meantime, just bringing you one headline that the Fed will begin buying broad portfolio of U.S. corporate bonds. That certainly is going to play into the discussions today. Let's talk about what's happening, especially on the equity side, with Gina Martin Adams. That's because she's the chief equity strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence. She joins us on the phone from New Jersey. Dave Wilson, of course, our stocks editor, author of the chart and stock of the day. Dave, I want to start with you because you heard Charlie break down the numbers, the swings that we've been seeing. Take us inside the trade. Help us understand what levers are moving here.
Yeah, it looks like things have just kind of stabilized a bit, arguably, after, what we saw on Friday with stocks getting off to a pretty good early start and then not being able to hang on to gains. Today was kind of the opposite, where you had the early losses and markets come back. You see technology stocks at the forefront today. You see communication stocks. And there we're talking about the likes of Google's owner Alphabet as well as Facebook. But it's not like any one group is sort of a standout at this point. It's just interesting to see the kind of reversals that have gone on in today's trading. I mean, early on, you saw, take the travel stocks. I mean, they've certainly been among the more volatile shares out there. And they were down big time early on. And now you look at them, I mean, Americans up 0.6%. Delta's a little changed. And, cruise lines, you got Carnival down a bit, 2.3%, but Royal Caribbean's barely lower. So, we've certainly seen a lot of movement in those shares. Same thing with the biggest banks, which are a little changed at this point after having fallen early on. So a lot of recovery going on in today's trading after some early losses that look mighty familiar in terms of the kinds of stocks that were falling.
All right, let's bring in Gina Martin Adams. Gina, you're writing on the Bloomberg. You talk about the stocks rebound, stocks bounce back, may remain under fire until green shoots emerge. I do feel like we're at this juncture. Jason and I were talking about it last week, about a week ago exactly, that all of a sudden investors were like, wait a minute, we've gotten way ahead of ourselves. Let's see what the economic and corporate profit outlook ultimately is, and we need more data on that.
I would totally agree. I think what actually happened is the first few months of this recovery rally was really all about pricing a new Fed policy, a new monetary policy regime. Once we got to the point where we fully priced extremely low interest rates for a very long period of time, we sort of lost our momentum. And I think now the next phase has to be about, okay, great, we are willing to pay a lot more for equities given just this permanently low interest rate landscape. But where's the earnings outlook going to go? And I do think that that's going to be the next leg of the rally or not rally, is sort of the progression of earnings estimates, the progression of economic green shoots. Will we start to see some growth? And how does that forecast compare to the current consensus expectation, which is sub 2% growth in the next 12 months following the end of this month? So expectations are very low, but economic growth is also pretty slim. And I think the market's just going to go back and forth trying to figure out, how to pair expectations with reality.
So we just got to get comfortable with this level of back and forth, Gina?
I think that's some of it. I think also, though, if you look at things like factor leadership and sector leadership, you have seen some rotation back to more stability, more defensiveness, sort of the momentum, quality, low volatility trade that really dominated pre-crisis does appear to be making a little bit of headway over the last week or so. And I think that's really just about stuff like high volatility and high bankruptcy risk and kind of low quality stocks really ripped out of the March low so much more than they normally do in the first leg of recovery that I think that segment of the rally got a little bit ahead of itself. And that's the segment where you would normally see, growth prospects start to emerge.
Right.
But we're really starting to question that segment. So I think it's going to be a back and forth and kind of choppier market for the factor and sector leaders as well.
Hey, just quickly, Gina, just about 20 seconds. When can we expect fairly for companies to start saying, okay, here's our outlook. We have an outlook to give you. When should we expect them to be able to do that?
Yeah, I think that you'll hear a little bit more of that in the July quarter. So with the next earnings season really kicks off only a month from now, a little less than a month from now, shockingly. Okay. And at that point, I think we'll hear a little bit more about, okay, at least for June, what did the reopenings in the U.S. look like? What do our prospects for growth look like? How are we going to do in terms of liquidity and leverage? Those types of things are going to start to eke out, I think, in the July quarter.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much, Gina Martin-Adams, Chief Equity Strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us on the phone from New Jersey. Dave Wilson is going to be back with us at 3:30 with his chart of the day and later on his stock. Two good ones we've gotten a preview, and they're going to be good. Coming up, we've got a busy show.
Yeah, we do. And we're going to talk about a lot of the stories that are in the headlines about significant and market-moving things, including Supreme Court decisions. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the Carlos Ghosn saga. Another chapter being revealed. The story broke exclusive to Bloomberg News over the weekend. So we're going to get into that. And then we've got a great cast of leaders that are going to talk with us.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to catching up with Mike Hayford. He's the president and CEO of Georgia-based NCR, based right there in the Atlanta suburbs. So what's going on with his business and what's going on there in Atlanta? I mean, Atlanta has been such a critical focal point of everything that's going on over the past couple weeks and even over the weekend. We were talking a lot about it, as you can imagine, here at our house. Also, the president and CEO at the AI cloud software company Calabria.
Yeah, looking forward to what he has to say about contact tracing for workplaces. Alan Patricoff's going to be back with us. Understands, has been involved in the VC world for a long time, so we're going to talk to him about that. And we're going to wrap up our Monday with Paul Reiser, comedian, actor, writer, and author.
I can't wait for that. I
know you can't.
That's one I'm really looking forward to. All right, all that ahead. In the meantime, let's do the Bloomberg Business Week Bite of the Day. I love this one. One number that tells us a lot. Today's number, a little less than 5%.
Yeah, the Wall Street owners of the Philadelphia 76ers and New Jersey Devils, they now have a toehold in the NFL. Josh Harris and David Blitzer acquired a stake of less than 5% in the Pittsburgh Steelers earlier this year, according to those in the know. While no details on prices were available, the pair of financiers may have paid as much as $140 million based on the $2.8 billion value Forbes estimated of that NFL franchise. What?
So this is a scoop by Eric Schatzker. Loved reading this on the terminal. Let's not forget, especially for your Mets fans out there, they are rumored to be one of the potential bidders for the Mets, too.
They've been doing some shopping, huh?
Building an empire for sure. All right, let's head down to D.C. now. Nancy Lyons has our world and national headlines. Hey, Nance.
Hey, Jason. We have a victory for gay rights today. A divided U.S. Supreme Court ruled that federal law protects gay and LGBT workers from job discrimination, issuing a major civil rights decision. Bloomberg's Supreme Court reporter Greg Storr says the 6-3 ruling has a lot of impact.
More than half the U.S. states don't cover sexual orientation and gender identity through their own anti-discrimination laws. And what that meant was, in most of the country, it was perfectly legal for an employer to fire somebody because of his or her gender identity or sexual orientation. Now that can no longer happen. And it's a ruling that came out of a pretty conservative Supreme Court.
The Supreme Court has also refused to take up a new test of qualified immunity, the liability shield for police officers accused of civil rights violations. Such immunity has been a topic of discussion following the death of George Floyd and the video of the officer kneeling on his neck. An American businessman says he does plan to appeal after a Russian judge sentenced him today to 16 years in a maximum security prison on charges of espionage. Former U.S. Marine Paul Whelan has maintained his innocence. The U.S. Embassy is denouncing the trial as unfair. U.S. Ambassador to Russia John Sullivan calls the proceedings a mockery of justice.
He's been sentenced to 16 years in prison with no evidence that's been produced. There was no evidence recited by the judge that justified the detention that he's already been subjected to.
Whelan argued throughout the trial he was framed in a sting operation. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Working from home, take a little more time for breakfast. Tom Keene.
How will this pandemic change your NASDAQ?
Jonathan Farrell.
When you look at that sector, some of these companies won't exist, will they?
And Lisa Abramowitz.
They've only continued to increase the delinquencies and defaults.
Crunch data topped with fresh world news. Bloomberg Surveillance. Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. And now, watch us on Bloomberg Television.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
It's a stock market driver.
Now they're starting to see a little bit of panic from policymakers.
It's a global political force.
How will this epidemic reshape big tech and its relationship with Washington?
It's a virus.
This coronavirus is a global pandemic.
Is there a safe haven?
And the facts matter.
The situation is so bad because of the virus that is simply unavoidable.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
You know that feeling when you get more than you expected? Like discovering that the box of chocolates has a whole other layer underneath? Or scoring extra poppadoms with your takeaway? Or joining Tesco Mobile and finding out you get the latest phones and 99% UK network coverage? Yeah, that moment feels good, right? Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
When you buy tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al? Or Derek? Or Sanjay? Or Sue? Or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed, retrieve data fast. Scalability, grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity, easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. You can do your bit by continuing to work from home if you can and avoiding public transport. If you have to use public transport, from today you must now wear a face covering at all times. Avoid peak hours and wash your hands before and after travel. For everyone's safety, we regularly clean our services with antiviral disinfectant and will be providing hand sanitizer across our network. For more information, search TfL's Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids. Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs.
Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events. To standout stations and podcasts, stay in touch with TuneIn.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, best level of the day. Stock surging right after the Federal Reserve said it will begin buying individual corporate bonds under its secondary market corporate credit facility, an emergency lending program that to date has purchased only exchange-traded funds. That word coming just about 18 minutes ago. Top of the hour, the Dow now up by 273 points, up by 1%, have been down more than 700 points, down 3% in the early going. S&P up 37 now, higher by 1.2%. NASDAQ is up 161 points. That is a gain of 1.7%. A lot of volatility. Stocks had been fluctuating. Major turnaround for the U.S. stock market. Again, the S&P up now by 1.2%. 10-year down 2/30 seconds with a yield of 0.71%. Gold down 0.2%, 17.27 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude now surging 2.4%, 37.15 a barrel. Fast-moving markets. Great reason to keep it locked into Bloomberg Radio. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. I'm Carol Massar, along with my co-host Jason Kelly. Well, our next guest, Tom Goodmanson, is president and CEO at the customer experience intelligence company Calabrio. They use AI-driven analytics, and they use it to track customer behavior and sentiment, and they work with their clients using that information. They're based in Minneapolis. That's exactly where Tom joins us on the phone on this Monday. Tom, welcome to Bloomberg Radio. Nice to have you here with us. You know, I have to be honest with you. I read your website a couple times, read a bunch of your press releases and some other information. What exactly do you guys do using AI to kind of bridge gaps between customers and clients?
Yeah, thanks, Carol. You know, we really, put it simply, we sit in contact centers and we're listening to what's going on between the customer and the agent, and we're helping that it be a better insight. And so we provide analytic insights by recording and then running it through our engines to do things like predictive NPS. We do predictive scoring. We do predictive how agents think. So we really are trying to get in the minds of the agent in order to give a better situation to the end user.
And so this plays into one of the terms that we have all started to use and come to grips with, which is contact tracing. So help us understand how it fits into that broader effort.
Yeah, so if you think about this is a very heated, if somebody's calling in and they've got COVID, or the other is they find out, they get the people that have been diagnosed and they find out who they've talked to, you have to have a kind of a bedside manner. And so we're helping those agents train and understand how to help. And then the AI is driving to maybe see trends. So we're not just taking the word of the person calling in, but we might be able to spot some other trends that are going on in a region, in an area.
So are you learning anything so far through that work? Because we're all trying to figure out what happens next here.
Yeah, the work we're finding right now is think about how much we have to spin up, right? So the work is maybe 3 to 4 weeks old in a lot of the regions that are just spinning these up as we start to open up the world a little bit here. And so the insights have not started pouring in, other than people are scared when they call and just trying to provide calming. That's probably the number one thing that I'm seeing, is just having a calming influence for now.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think about you guys, play into different worlds. You have a certain window that maybe some of us don't. And I do wonder what it says to us about kind of where we are in our world, especially as post-COVID-19, we're not done. As many of the doctors we talk to and members of the medical community remind us, that we're not anywhere near to being done, but we are reopening and people are making their way back. We're trying to figure out, okay, what does our world look like? What does the marketplace look like? What does the economy look like? What would you say?
That's a good question, and if I had the answer to that, I'd probably have my employees back at work.
Yeah.
People are really cautious. You're seeing a lot of excitement. They're tired of being at home and homeschooling and doing all that stuff, but then there's that fear factor. We've got a lot of things that people feel that they've been left out of, but they don't know how quite to go back. And so I think some programs like this should allow us that confidence that we're going to find problems and hotspots more quickly we did early this year, and allow us to maybe give us a little bit of confidence as we go back.
Right, and to isolate maybe a little bit more effectively. And to that end, Tom, what's your sense about who should ultimately be running these types of operations? Because I think a lot of people, candidly, are skeptical of the federal government, but we also know that state and local governments have different levels of funding. What's the optimal system from your perspective?
From my perspective, I think it's a public-private type partnership. The public good, the health departments and what have you, I think they have the data and the know-how. Companies like ours have the skill to let them get to work and do what they do best. And then between the two of us, then spin up and partner with business provider outsourcers, so BPOs, to get them the bodies that they need. Because this is a body intensive, as you can imagine. The CDC and George Washington University say that we should have 30 tracers for every 100,000 residents. That's a lot of people to get spun up to make this work.
So the whole idea, right? Jason and I have had tons of conversations about the importance of testing and tracing, and that's how it's going to give the confidence. So you guys are working to kind of help workplaces get those programs in place. Just got about 40 seconds left here.
Yeah, we're working really hard to help companies, but also the state governments. We've engaged with many state governments. We think that that's the right place to put the biggest centers, because each state, as we've seen, has had different approaches to and different outbreaks. And so we think that that's the best place to help them. And then companies, of course, if they do the next level to help their employees, is a really important step as well.
And we should point out that you're partnering with Amazon and Twilio to work on those virtual contact tracing operations around the U.S. Really appreciate your time. Tom Goodmanson is President and CEO at Calabrio. He is based in Minneapolis, and that's where he joined us on the phone, Jason, on this Monday.
Yeah, interesting to see. These are going to be massive logistical and to some extent almost infrastructure challenges. And if you can't offset that with some machine learning, obviously that would make sense. Interested to hear how this all goes, because through the summer we're going to be
It's a new corporate system that you need, too.
Yeah,
right? Another thing that you have to have in place. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks have reversed their early losses. The S&P bottomed out with a 2.5% loss before bouncing back. The Dow Jones Industrial Average now up 193. The S&P 500 up 27. The Nasdaq is up 137. The two largest mall landlords reportedly are teaming up with Authentic Brands on a possible buyout of JCPenney. Sources say the sides are in talks, though a deal is not a sure thing. JCPenney filed for Chapter 11 last month. Amazon has told congressional investigators looking into the market power of the largest tech companies that it will make CEO Jeff Bezos available to testify this summer. Amazon had resisted calls for Bezos to testify as recently as last month. The New York Stock Exchange trading floor will get a bit busier later this week. The exchange is allowing a couple dozen designated market makers to return, in addition to the participants who returned late last month. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
At Bloomberg, we know a lot of financial experts.
He's a former president of the European Central Bank.
Your Global Financial Warriors is a classic textbook.
A lot of political experts.
If you were advising the President of the United States, what's the thing that he's not doing that he should do?
And lucky for you, we know a lot of science experts, too.
You talked about those reagents which are necessary for the testing.
It's also the behavioral psychological approach.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening. This July 4th, tune in to the Boston...
When you're buying tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al? Or Derek? Or Sanjay? Or Sue? Or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At Asda, we've provided 3,500 care homes with priority access to delivery slots, and priority shopping hours are open to our care workers. We're also donating 250,000 face masks to care homes. Asda, we're all in this together. Please show ID for priority shopping. Check asda.com for times.
We've got a lot of catching up to do.
Hi there, everybody. It's lovely to be with you again.
Over 100 live games in just 6 weeks on Sky Sports. Everything still to play for. Scores to sell. Relegation to avoid. Europe up for grabs. And the titles to win. Upgrade to Sky Sports today. 64 Premier League and 37 EFL games on Sky Sports, 17th of June till 26th of July. Requires Sky Sports Premier League and football packs. See sky.com/sports for details.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Balls over a man, into the end zone,
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There's going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
Search Classic Game Replays to listen for free.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying to
standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Broadcasting live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, it was a big day in terms of Supreme Court decisions. And, Carol, this was one
huge.
A little bit unexpected, I think, in many corners, but profound, not just social, but I would say economic consequences of this one when it comes to workers, employers, and really interested to get Jeff Green's take on it coming up next.
Yeah, absolutely. Not what I expected on a Monday morning, but man, it's a big story. We're going to be talking about it for some time to come. Let's, though, get back to the bigger, broader business stories as well, and a look at trading. Here is, once again, Charlie Pellet.
Thank you very much, and here's what's going on. I want to begin with a developing story first reported by the Associated Press. The Oscars have delayed the 2021 ceremony until April again. That on reporting from the AP. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing close to session highs right now after the Federal Reserve said it will begin buying individual corporate bonds. Stocks had fluctuated amid concern a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic is emerging. Oil futures rebounded after slumping to around $35 a barrel in New York as BP warned the pandemic will hurt long-term energy demand. BP shares, they're down 0.9% right now. The S&P is up 29, close to session highs at 3,070, a gain of 1%. The Dow's up 202 points, up by 0.8%. To put that in context, at the worst level of the day, the Dow had been down 760 points, down by 3%. Stocks did decline right at the open on growing concern about a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic. Dr. Joshua Sharfstein is Vice Dean at Johns Hopkins University. And on Bloomberg Television this morning, he told us he is concerned about complacency.
If you let your guard down, it will come back. And in the United States, there's no question that there are parts of the country that have let their guard down somewhat. That not just that they've opened, but that people have sort of mentally moved past, I think, the rigor that they need to follow in order to prevent infection. And the delay to see a rise is probably more like 6 weeks than 2 weeks. And so 6 weeks after the opening, we're starting to see surges in a number of states.
The Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. Sources tell Bloomberg the two largest mall landlords, Simon Property Group and Brookfield Property Partners, along with Authentic Brands Group, are in talks to buy bankrupt department store chain J.C. Penney. Right now we have got shares of Simon Property Group. They're trading lower by 2.5%. Brookfield Property Partners up 0.6%. J.C. Penney surging 18%. Again, recapping the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, all advancing. 10-year yield 0.70%. Gold down 0.2%. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.8%. $36.92 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Well, a big headline crossing this morning, courtesy of the Supreme Court, a decision that really was not expected, and I would say even less expected was the breakdown in terms of how the justices voted. Let's talk about it with Jeff Green, because this is a milestone, it feels like, in terms of rights for workers and specifically LGBTQ workers. Jeff, tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that a lot of people maybe still don't realize is that a majority of Americans are not protected from discrimination in this country up until, well, today. So if you, in many states, a majority of states, in fact, if somebody wanted to fire you for being gay or transgender, it was legal. There was no recourse up until the Supreme Court basically said that the 1964 Civil Rights Act can be interpreted to cover LGBT rights as well, which makes us, pretty much on par with the gay marriage ruling.
It's interesting, too, Jeff, that Greg Stewart, too, writing about this today, and he says more than half the U.S. states don't cover sexual orientation and gender identity through their own anti-discrimination laws, and more than half of the nation's 8 million LGBT workers live in those states. So this is a big, big deal.
Right. Yeah, and it's, like you said, unexpected to some degree.
Yeah.
With the current Supreme Court configuration. And, I mean, it gets most of the workers now are protected. I mean, the Title VII, as this 1964 law is referred to in shorthand, does not cover people who work at companies that have less than 15 employees. And that's still probably around 10 to 15% of Americans work at smaller companies. That small majority of Americans work at companies with less than 1,000 people. So there wasn't a lot of protection for people who worked at the smallest companies. Most of the large corporations, like most of the Fortune 500, S&P 500, already have some sort of a regulation protecting LGBT workers. So the law was really meant to protect, the law really was sort of not covering people who were outside of those big companies.
And so what does this mean? Jeff, you and your team do such a great job sort of covering diversity in all of its aspects on the Managing Diversity team at Bloomberg. And I do wonder, as you guys have talked about it, what are the practical implications for this? Are there sort of economic factors that enter in here? What does it really mean when we get down to brass tacks?
Well, I mean, it means job security, legal protection for a group of, and maybe make it a little more likely that people will be out at work. I mean, one of the big issues with gay marriage was that a lot of companies had been offering benefits, same-sex benefits, and when gay marriage was legal in all 50 states, there was this idea that we don't need that anymore because now you can get married and get the benefits. But a lot of people were concerned that if they lived in a state where it was legal to fire me for being gay, then I really didn't want to advertise my marriage, or I didn't want to get married. Right. So I would lose my health care unless I got married, and then I could be fired. So there was sort of this catch-22, and that's now sort of taken away, at least when it comes to domestic implications. There's still global implications to being gay and married in other countries, but as of today, for most Americans, that is not an issue.
Yeah. No, it's great, and we really appreciate you bringing us the details on this. Jeff Green, Managing Diversity Reporter for Bloomberg, joining us from Detroit. This felt seismic in many ways.
You said it at the top, unexpected, to have, Neil Gorsuch, who's conservative, to have also John Roberts, the Chief Justice, also conservative.
Gorsuch was the surprise for me.
Right.
I mean, Roberts has emerged as sort of the swing vote, right? Right. And in many ways, seeing Neil Gorsuch not only vote that way, but write for the majority.
Right, exactly. I mean, that is really taking a big step in terms of what that decision was all about. And I do think, we look at the three branches of our government and how they are supposed to kind of checks and balances on one another. And this, shows to me at least that it continues to be an independent Supreme Court, which is such an important part of this government functioning.
And I do think, when it comes to rights of all individuals, I think there was a segment of the population that looked at this that has been rightly agitated and upset, and at least said, all right, here's a little bit of good news as we press forward.
Yeah, considering certainly the recent backdrop. All right, let's get back to World and National News headlines. Back on over to Nancy Lyons in our 99.1 newsroom. Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Carol. A rally and march on Georgia is underway following the shooting death of Rayshard Brooks by an Atlanta police officer. That was captured on body cam, and it's sparking new outrage. The medical examiner says Brooks' death is a homicide with 2 gunshots to the back. Justin Miller, attorney for the family of Rayshard Brooks, talks about the officer's decision to use lethal force.
You can see the officer reach for the gun before Mr. Brooks turns around with the taser. I mean, that's clearly visible in the video. So he was already going in that direction, going to the lethal force direction before that taser was pointed in his direction.
The officer who fired the deadly shot has been fired himself. The other officer has been placed on administrative leave. The Supreme Court has ruled that a key provision of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 protects LGBT people from discrimination in employment. It's a resounding victory for LGBT rights from a conservative court. The vote was 6-3. Justices Samuel Alito, Brett Kavanaugh, and Clarence Thomas were the dissenters. The decision could have a broad practical impact. More than half the U.S. states do not cover sexual orientation and gender identity through their own anti-discrimination laws. Former Vice President Joe Biden is receiving pressure to select a black woman to serve as his running mate in light of the George Floyd protest movement. But more than 100 liberal activists, leaders, and celebrities have sent a letter to Biden asking him to select Elizabeth Warren. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President, Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
COVID-19. If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
At Honda, we've never looked to other car companies for inspiration. No, it's not a matter of an inflated ego. We just prefer listening to what people really need. For example, the new Honda Jazz Hybrid doesn't have the expected 6 airbags. It has 10, including one that prevents the driver and passenger from colliding with each other. And because we also listen to our conscience, all our safety features come as standard. No charge. Honda, the power of dreams.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, Avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Disney's Artemis Fowl starts streaming exclusively now.
Artemis, there is an artifact from another world that threatens mankind. Your mission is to steal it.
Based on the epic best-selling book series,
we need a thief and we need a fairy.
Disney Plus invites you to experience a new world.
Who do you think you are? I'm the next criminal mastermind.
Disney's Artemis Fowl, now streaming only on Disney Plus. 18 plus subscription required. T's and C's apply.
We've got a lot of catching up to do.
Hi there, everybody. Lovely to be with you again.
Over 100 live games in just 6 weeks on Sky Sports. Everything still to play for. Scores to sell. Relegation to avoid. Europe up for grabs. And the titles to win. Upgrade to Sky Sports today. 64 Premier League and 37 EFL games on Sky Sports. 17th of June till 26th of July. Requires Sky Sports Premier League and football packs. See sky.com/sports for details.
The right time with Bomani Jones.
While he was gone, Al had some kind of vote to make him the managing. You remember he used to come up all the time in the Raiders game that he was the managing general partner. By the way, don't forget, there was a lot going on in Munich. But you know how tired that man was to come back and find out that Al Davis had strong-armed his team from him while he was gone?
Search The Right Time with Bomani Jones to listen.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. 200-point jump for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. 1% gain now for the S&P 500 Index. A rebound from overnight losses has turned into a full-blown risk-on surge after the Fed said it will broaden its purchase of corporate bonds under an emergency lending program. S&P 500 Index up 29 points, again up 1% of 3,070. The Dow is up 200 points, a gain of 0.8%. At the worst level of the day have been down 760 points, down 3%. NASDAQ is up 148 points, up now by 1.5%. Oil rose, treasuries fell, West Texas Intermediate crude up 2%, 36.97 a barrel. The 10-year down 1/32 with a yield of 0.70%. Gold down 0.2%, 17.27 the ounce. Bottom line, a rebound for the U.S. stock market. S&P up 29, up now by 1%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. So, Jason, you know, something we've talked about on air a lot was about the incarceration rates in the U.S. and in some case wrongful incarceration. We've talked about that with Jason Flom, founder of the Innocence Project. A provocative column on the Bloomberg and in the magazine about when talking about defunding the police, which we've talked about a lot, or we've heard from various towns around the country in the last few weeks. Well, when you're talking about that, don't forget the prisons. Justin Fox wrote it. He's columnist at Bloomberg Opinion. He joins us on the phone in New York City, along with Bloomberg Businessweek editor Joel Weber on the phone from Brooklyn. And Joel, let's start with you because this is a really important piece of this conversation.
Yeah, so when we work with Justin, our back page in the magazine is a rotating cast of Bloomberg Opinion columnists, and Justin always has just an eye for data, and he kind of just combs around looking for stuff. And when we sort of connected with him ahead of this column, it was right in the peak of the protests, and I thought that his take on this was really interesting because, sure, we can talk about defunding the police, and that's a real of the moment story, but there's this other story that's actually been kind of unfolding for decades, and that's the rise of prisons, and our incarceration rates are just unbelievable in the United States, where we're seeing it's like 3 times higher now than it ever was. And it's also very expensive. So, Justin, when you kind of dug into the data, what jumped out at you about these numbers?
Well, so what it is when I do these back pages, since I'm supposed to be the data guy, it's usually based around a chart. And the original chart I was going to do was about, U.S. police, whether we have more police here than other countries. And as soon as you do the comparison, the U.S. is actually among affluent democracies. We're sort of on the low end. We're about the same as Japan, a little more than Canada in terms of police officers per 100,000. And so then you start looking, well, where are we different? And we're not that different in prosecutors or judges or even in arrests and criminal charges. But yeah, then you look at imprisonment, and it's just we are way off the chart compared with any other country in the world. We have more people in prison in both absolute terms and per capita terms than any other country. And what kind of then surprised me is I've done charts a lot in the past of the incarceration rate since the 70s, how it's gone up a lot. But I've been reading this remarkable book called The Collapse of American Criminal Justice by a late law professor, William Stuntz, who died of cancer a few years ago. And he just keeps making the point that, yeah, it went up a lot in the 70s and 80s and 90s, but what's really striking is how it had never been high before. The U.S. had never been that punitive a country until the 1970s.
And what happened?
I mean, there was a crime wave, so part of it was this reaction to the crime wave. But the way we reacted just ended up, I mean, yes, crime went up, but incarceration went up like several times more than the crime rates. And, you know, in the aftermath, as everybody's been trying to figure out why then crime then fell, people, you know, clearly in some cases, having people in prison who would otherwise be out committing crimes does reduce the crime rate, but every attempt to sort of suss it out finds lots of other factors being better at explaining it, and one of those factors is actually how many police are on the street. Having more police in general, overall, seems to reduce crime. But whereas incarceration can sometimes, there's no evidence that longer sentences have much deterrent effect. And the problem with incarceration is once you get up to a certain level where you have a high enough percentage of the population in prison or jail, you end up starting to increase recidivism. I can never say that word.
Recidivism. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Because you're basically creating these vast warehouses where people can teach other people how to be better criminals, basically, instead of having any sort of attempt at rehabilitation, which you can if you have a smaller system. So it's just a bunch of different things happen, some at the national level, but a lot just in terms of, and some in terms of a lot of court rulings, and some just in terms of who got elected to be DA in lots of different counties around the country. And that's been turning around over the past 10 years, but it's just, clearly we just dramatically overdid it.
Yeah. Well, and there's the whole creation of the private, prison system. People have made a lot of money sort of building and running these as well, Just. I mean, it's just become this massive kind of industrial complex in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I think the private prison aspect of it bothers people, but it's actually a relatively small part of the overall picture.
Interesting.
And in terms of sort of in terms of like lobbying state governments to keep locking lots of people up, I think actually corrections unions in state-run systems probably have more clout than the private prison companies do.
Well, and I think what's interesting in your story, in your column, Justin, you also talk about, there are huge costs. We know it. There's human costs, there's huge economic costs, but I also feel like, if anything, the last 13, 14 weeks have taught us what the last 3 weeks have taught us is the inequalities, the injustices, and who gets targeted unfairly as a result of things that are entrenched in our system. And prisons have become such a way of life, for many. And I feel like it doesn't work. It doesn't reform people. We got to figure out how to do something differently.
Right. And I guess what kind of struck me when I built this chart was just this sense, because I'd always had this impression, the U.S. is a lot more punitive than other countries.
Right.
But I guess what I hadn't realized is that there was just no real parallel in at least in terms of the criminal justice system. Obviously Ava DuVernay made a whole movie about there being a parallel between this and the institution of slavery.
Yeah.
And I think she has a point. But in terms of the actual criminal justice system, there's been nothing like this in the past in the U.S. Our big, as Jason was saying, our incarceration rate is 3 or 4 times higher than it ever was before 1980.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, Justin Fox, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Columnist for Bloomberg Opinion. Joel Weber, before we let you go, what else are you excited about in the magazine this week?
So we got a food package that is sort of pandemic inspired, shall we say. We've all been on quarantine, and food has just sort of found, I think, a newfound importance in our daily lives. And so we've got a package coming that sort of helps look at that.
I love it. And if it involves maybe a cake crate or two, that would be kind of fun. I got to say, in my household, Joel, I don't know about your household, but man, it's like food delivery. It's Wednesday night at 9 p.m. and we all gather to get the boxes.
Let's look forward to that. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Sort of the world we're living in. All right, Joel Weber, we'll be catching up with you tomorrow. I'm sure editor of Bloomberg Business Week, joining us from Brooklyn. Well, lots more coming up on this show. And for those of you listening in D.C., New York, and San Francisco, watching on YouTube, Bloomberg Business Week continues. If you're listening on Bloomberg 1061 in Boston, Bay State Business is coming up next. Here, we're going to dig into the economics of reopening with the backdrop of either a continuing first wave, a spike of a second wave.
Right.
It's a really, really important story, Carol.
The economic outlook, the market outlook, the corporate profit outlook, it all depends on the virus. So stick around for that conversation. This is Bloomberg.
At the start.
Listen, that's a dream. Everyone has them, jingling away in the back of our minds. And most of the time, that's where dreams stay. So easy to ignore. Anything can drown them out, and everything does. But at Honda, we listen to our dreams. We get right up close. And on really good days, they become reality. From 2022, Honda's mainstream cars will only be hybrid or electric. Honda, the power of dreams.
When you buy tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al? Or Derek? Or Sanjay? Or Sue? Or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. You can do your bit by continuing to work from home if you can and avoiding public transport. If you have to use public transport, from today you must now wear a face covering at all times. Avoid peak hours and wash your hands before and after travel. For everyone's safety, we regularly clean our services with antiviral disinfectant and will be providing hand sanitizer across our network. For more information, search TfL's Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
It's Tune In Sports on this day.
On this day in 1986, four-time major championship winner Ray Floyd wins his fourth final major. 2 strokes ahead of Chip Beck and Lane Watkins.
Playing with a quiet confidence and determination born of Raymond Floyd, an inexorable presence all week, wasn't waiting until Sunday to make his move at the leaders. Playing with a quiet confidence.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
Where do sports, culture, and basketball nostalgia collide? On their podcast, Knuckleheads, NBA veterans Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles sit down with athletes, musicians, and entertainers to get brutally honest, totally unguarded conversations about everything from current events to untold stories from the golden era of sports.
Shaquille O'Neal. You know that, right? I tried to tip dunk all the free throw line one time.
Search Knuckleheads on TuneIn to listen.
Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We move into the final hour of trading on this Monday, June 15th, with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing. A rebound from overnight losses has turned into a full-blown risk-on surge after the Federal Reserve said 1 hour ago it will broaden its purchase of corporate bonds under an emergency lending program. S&P 500 index up 23. That is a gain of 0.8%. The Dow well off session highs, but still up 150 points, up by 0.6%. Keep in mind, at the worst level of the day, the Dow had been down 3%. NASDAQ up 135 points, up 1.4%. 10-year up 1/32 with a yield of 0.70%. Gold down 0.2%, 17.26 the ounce, and crude now up by 2%, 36.97 a barrel. Well, as for markets, the economy, and coronavirus, Jim Paulson is chief investment strategist at Luthold Whedon Capital Management. He was interviewed this morning on Bloomberg Television.
You know, we're going to have the virus go on, and we're going to have spikes in cases along the way. I think we've come to a point where we realize that with the economy and the virus have to coexist. We can't choose one or the other.
BP will make the biggest write-down on the value of its business since the Deepwater Horizon disaster a decade ago, as the coronavirus pandemic hurts long-term oil demand and accelerates the shift to cleaner energy. BP's American Depository receipts, they are trading lower now, down by 1.1%. Among some of the other oil names, ExxonMobil is up 0.6%. EOG Resources down now by 0.3%. Pioneer Natural Resources, its shares trading lower by 2.3%. Iraq, meanwhile, says it will cut exports by at least 15% this month to meet a production cap under OPEC, an OPEC agreement, an OPEC Plus agreement that has sparked a rally in crude prices. Again, West Texas Intermediate crude up now by 2%. Recapping equities higher across the board. Big rebound underway with the S&P up 27. That's a gain of 0.9%. NASDAQ up 1.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
So no doubt about it, what happens from here largely depends on what happens next with the virus. The economy, what type of bounce back we see as the country and the world reopen, depends on whether or not people feel safe enough to go back to work and resume economic activities. This is happening on a day when new outbreaks in the U.S. have some states considering whether to pause reopening. So in today's Business Week Economics edition, we thought we got to look at where we are when it comes to the virus. With us is Michelle Cortez, health science and medical technology reporter at Bloomberg News. She joins us back with us on the phone from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Michelle, it is good to have you here. Where are we? Like, people talk about second wave, reopenings, maybe we should pause them. What are you hearing? What do we need to know?
Well, I think that what we're learning is that this virus is a virus like all the other viruses, as we would have expected. The fact that most people in the world are still completely vulnerable to this new type of a bug. There's no natural immunity to it. People had hoped that because it does fall into this kind of seasonal arrangement of viruses that we would see a waning of its impact in the summer months. We're not seeing that. We're seeing it still going from one person to the next person. As long as there are people to be infected, that virus wants to infect them. And we haven't seen a drop, so we're not going to see a second peak. We might just see an increasing acceleration. But that's what we're looking at. It's hitting some places harder than others, but it has not gone away entirely from anywhere.
And so, Michelle, and you and your colleagues have done such a good job of synthesizing this. I mean, this is ultimately the clash that we are seeing, which is public health versus economics and economic health. In some ways, different states, different localities are dealing with it in a different way. What are we learning maybe on a state-by-state basis? What jumps out at you that it sort of gives us a sense of where we may be headed?
Well, the thing that is really jumping out at me is the extent to which this is circumferential for all of us. You have to make your own individual decision. You're going to have to make decisions for your family. You're going to have to make decisions for your city or town. You're going to have to make decisions for your state and for your country. You really can't get away from that when it comes to this situation.
Michelle, what do you you make about the story about Beijing over the weekend, and that about a new outbreak in Beijing that reached nearly 100 infections over the weekend? They talked about, again, linked to a vegetable market, linked to a market. I don't know. How do you take that into account?
Well, that's exactly the situation, right? There is no escaping this virus. That's what we have learned. So we really did think that, they were done in China. They had a terrible outbreak in Wuhan. They closed everything down. They really handled it very aggressively, and there was nothing happening there. For 50 days, they had no cases. But you just have to let one or two people in. You get that rebounding again. And when you still have this completely vulnerable population because they haven't had this virus, and that's it. Like the herd immunity says, somewhere between 60 and 80% of people either have to be immunized, and you can't do that because it doesn't exist, or you have to be infected. That's only going to give you one outlet. But again, to your point, we can't shut down the world, so we're going to have to figure out how to live with it.
Yeah.
And so to that exact point, Michelle, what seems to have worked from a public health perspective, barring complete shutdown, which I think it's safe to say a lot of government officials, state officials especially, are really resisting. And certainly we know that that's going to be resisted at the federal level. What seems to be working?
It seems like this virus is actually pretty fragile. If you hit it with any kind of cleaning supplies, it seems to take care of the virus. If you wear a mask, the numbers that we're getting, I mean, there were studies early on that showed that people who were living with the very first people who were infected, when we knew almost nothing about it, they could live with somebody who was infected in the same household and not pass it along. We saw some cases when it came to the destroyer and the aircraft carriers, the number of patients who came out of that it was dramatic. If you wore a mask and tried to social distance at all, you were so much more protected than if you weren't. So we're going to have to drill down and get a little more clarity on that. But it is undisputably true that if you are taking actions to protect yourself, those are having significant effects and might have even more dramatic effects than anyone realizes. So I know that it's, our country's kind of come divided about whether you wear a mask, what does that mean, what is that telling other people? But that's the concern, I think, in some of these places like Florida and Texas, where we have people going to bars and going to beaches, and they're not wearing masks, they're not protecting themselves, and we're seeing these surging infections. So it's like wearing a seatbelt. I mean, it's not going to hurt you to wear it at this point.
Right. It's so simple. And I felt like I saw a lot of that over the weekend, Michelle, depending on where I was, where people were really good about wearing masks. Then I saw people, close to one another with their masks kind of half off their face and talking and socializing. And I saw restaurants where their tables were out in parking lots and they were well spread out and they were very clear about what you could and couldn't do. But you're right. It's so simple. Jason, you keep talking about that. It's not just about protecting yourself, but it's about protecting your others by wearing a mask.
And also, I'm just going to echo what Michelle just said. Wear a mask. It's not that hard.
So simple.
And actually, I'm going to steal that line, Michelle, that you just used, which is, it is like wearing a seatbelt. It's partially about your safety, but it's partially about the safety of those around you. So really appreciate it. Great context. This is the conversation we needed to have to sort of set the table for where we are, especially here at the beginning of the week. Michelle Cortez, health science and medical technology reporter for Bloomberg, award-winning journalist on this story. She's just been a stalwart on this.
Right. And if you want things to get back to normal, in other words, participate in whether you want to be going out to stores, going to restaurants or something, going back to your office, It's so simple. Wear a mask. And that really reduces your risks dramatically and the risks of others, because this is what it's all about.
Yeah, and I do keep hearing that, and I do hope that continues to build, and that smarter and smarter people continue to pick that up. Our friend Scott Galloway, I saw a tweet of his over the weekend where he was citing a study similar to what Michelle was talking about, where if you wear a mask, if you do some very basic social distancing stuff, the chances of it spreading are dramatically lower.
Yeah, and that's worth noting, especially as we all are kind of just, just want to get back to normal. I'm just going to say it. All right, let's get back to world and national news. Headlines, a lot going on. Here is Nancy Lyons in her 99.1 newsroom. Hi, Nancy.
Hey, Carol. A divided U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that federal law does protect gay and transgender workers from job discrimination. It's a watershed decision that gives millions of LGBT people in dozens of states civil rights they had sought for decades. Bloomberg Supreme Court reporter Greg Storr explains more about what the justices were actually deciding.
This was a matter of interpreting the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That law says that you can't discriminate against somebody on the basis of sex, and the core question for the court in this case was a somewhat technical question, which is whether that word sex covers sexual orientation and gender identity, and the Supreme Court today said yes, it does.
Justice Neil Gorsuch and Chief Justice John Roberts joined the court's four liberals in the 6-3 majority. COVID-19 cases continue to climb in a number of U.S. states over the weekend, threatening recent efforts to relax restrictions and revive businesses after months of lockdowns. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow says the Trump administration does not believe the small bumps in infection rates amount to a second wave, and he reiterated today that officials do not plan to shut down the economy again. Well, the Oscars are being pushed back to April 25th from February 28th next year due to the coronavirus pandemic. No word if there will be a live audience and red carpet. The eligibility window will also be extended. Instead of it being December 31st, it'll now move to February 28th. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Nancy Lyons.
When you follow the facts,
Bloomberg's been reporting on this intelligence community report.
When you seek out the experts,
The investment banks that Bloomberg speak to also want some relief.
no matter what else is happening,
It's been pretty hard to read the signals.
at least you know what's real.
The economic fallout from the virus risks becoming entrenched.
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, weekdays at 1 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
What if the world listened more? Maybe it could become a better place. Because when we really listen, we're smart to notice things that don't sound quite right. They might not seem obvious at first, but listen closely and they stand out like a sore plum. And the more we listen, the more we learn. Our ears help us find better solutions. Things can change from this to something a little more like this. The new Honda Jazz is a hybrid. Honda, the power of dreams.
When you buy tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al? Or Derek? Or Sanjay? Or Sue? Or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Thanks to National Lottery players, South Denbighshire Community Partnership are now delivering hot meals to elderly people in the community like Bob and Sarah.
Thank you.
And £600 million of National Lottery funding is on its way to thousands more local projects across the UK during these exceptional times.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs.
Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Uncle Ben's rice, 250 grams for just £1. And our Butcher's Selection chicken breast fillets, only £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the wok? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
Hi, I'm an ad for Voxy, the mobile network that gives you endless social media without eating your data. Plus, there's no contract, so you can cancel any time. Get endless social media plus a whopping 12 gig for just £10 a month. What? Don't just sit there twiddling your thumbs. Get your SIM today at voxy.co.uk. Voxy. Stay connected, stay endless. Offer ends 25th of June. Endless social requires 30 days rolling plan, some general data, and does not include voice and video calls. 25 gigabytes roaming, fair use and terms apply.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. 43 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell with the Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ all advancing. Risk-on rally underway. Let's head right over to the First Word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here's Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. That's right. U.S. stocks trading higher today, overcoming a weak start and helped by the Fed announcing it will begin buying a broad portfolio of U.S. corporate bonds. Dow's currently higher by 192 points. It opened lower by 762. S&Ps are higher by 28. NASDAQ climbs by 146. The U.S. 10-year yield at 0.7%. WTI crude futures gained 2%. Gold is little changed, and transports gained 77 points. Leaders to the upside in the Dow, Raytheon, American Express, and 3M, while Merck and Pfizer led to the downside. In deal news, mall landlords and Authentic are said to be discussing a JCPenney bid. And in other news, Jeff Bezos agrees to testify to a House panel about Amazon business practices, and iRobot gained as much as 16% after guiding higher for Q2. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
Okay, we thank you very much. Your live breaking news over your Bloomberg Type Squawk, SQUAWK on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie Pellet, thank you so much. Well, we always love catching up with Andy Brown. And so let's continue our discussion around the world of economics, because this pandemic has really upset in many ways the economic almost ethos of everything that's going on here. Carol, absolutely. Andy, of course, is the editorial director for Bloomberg New Economy. He joins us on the phone from New Hampshire. So, Andy, as you try and make sense of all of this, we rely on you for your column every week to sort of set the stage. What were you thinking about this week?
So really this week, thinking about agenda, the new Bloomberg New Economy agenda for the rest of this year, which kind of acknowledges the central reality that the global economy is now at this turning point. And it faces a whole set of really stark choices. And, Michael Bloomberg was writing last week in the inaugural edition of Bloomberg Green, a phenomenal magazine. And, he said, he was talking about the trillions of dollars that are about to be flushed into the global economy. And he was talking about the environment. He said, look, the choice is clear, right? I mean, we either invest in clean infrastructure to create jobs, improve public health, or we keep protecting polluting industry. And guess what? The Trump administration has chosen to bail out oil and gas companies. But exactly the same set of choices affects area after area of the global economy.
Well, and you know what's interesting, too? I do feel like, and Andy, we've had some conversations, Kathy Wood over at ARK Investment, who consistently reminds us that during times of stress and disruption in our world and in our economies, that's when you can kind of pivot and make some really big changes. And I do feel like whether it's, as you write, on the climate, whether it's on finance, whether it's on public health, whether it's on cities, how we look at things right now, we can make some decisions that will really change our course longer term.
Right. Well, we just heard on the news headlines just now how the Fed is going to invest in a broader range of corporate bonds. I mean, so the economist Mohamed El-Arian was writing about this in the Financial Times last week, and talking about these unprecedented sums of money that are being used to plug revenue shortfalls in companies. And he said, look, the question is, are these funds going to be used for short-term financial engineering, share buybacks, padding the pay of global CEOs, or is it going to be used to shore up the fundamentals, the long-term base of the economy? And surely, if you look at it that way, an obvious choice would be to engineer a new deal for workers, right? The essential workers who've held the whole thing together during this coronavirus pandemic, the gig workers who are now out of a job, the migrant workers in developing countries all over the world who've been sent back, to their villages. We need a new deal. Are we going to get a new deal out of this massive finance that is flowing from the COVID-19 stimulus?
What are the chances?
I don't know. You see, I mean, it's kind of depressing because in area after area, governments seem to be making the wrong choices. If you look at trade, the question now is, do we keep going with this multilateral trading system, which has brought unprecedented global prosperity, lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, has been a ladder to middle class, middle income status for developing countries all over the world, or are we going to turn inward? And guess what's happening? We see trade tariffs, we see barriers to goods, we see barriers to people, even at the risk of precipitating a Great Depression, coming out of the recession. Cities. You talk about cities. I was just on the phone talking to Dr. Oxiris Barbeau, who's a New York Health Commissioner, looking at the issue of inequality in New York, which is driving so many of these street protests. And she's from the South Bronx, and in the South Bronx, life expectancy there is literally 30 years shorter than it is in a place like Greenwich, Connecticut. Right? Wow. 25% of people living in the Bronx suffer from food insecurity. They're the ones that are queuing around the block in the food lines. And what are we going to do with inequality in cities? Are we going to wait for our cities to be torn apart, or are we going to fundamentally re-engineer them, reinvent the education system, healthcare systems? to reduce these grotesque disparities. That's the choice we face in the city.
Right, and as in most things, these are big problems, global problems. Andy, and I know you guys look at it, and we'll see what kind of collaborations we get, global collaborations going forward. And I know you guys are going to be covering this in the next year, so we'll look forward to that. Andy Brown, thank you as always, editorial director of Bloomberg New Economy, on the phone from New Hampshire, and they're going to be focusing on those 5 areas, Jason: climate, finance, trade, public health, and cities over the next year or so. So we'll look forward to that continued coverage. I feel like we're at a very important moment in time.
Absolutely. No, for sure. And I think, looking at the economy globally is more important than ever, and that's what we really rely on Andy for. As we said, coming up, we're going to have Dave Wilson's chart of the day. Later on, we are going to talk about the Carlos Ghosn case. Remember that? This is a twist you did not see coming.
Will Netflix do the show? Will Amazon do it? Will Apple TV?
Exactly.
Someone's got to do it. All right, you're listening to Business Week on Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Buyers are back on Wall Street, sending stocks back into positive territory after a sharply lower start. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 179, the S&P is up 27, the Nasdaq is up 143. Electronic Arts is up 4%. It revealed a new Star Wars game title called Squadrons. Cowen says the game could give the company some added momentum as it heads into its next fiscal year. The game will retail for $40. Add 24-hour fitness to the list of companies driven into bankruptcy by the coronavirus pandemic. The fitness chain closed its gyms in response to the pandemic, cutting revenue close to zero. It has now begun reopening some locations. Manufacturers in New York State are getting busier this month. The New York Fed's Business Conditions Index returned almost to break even after a May reading which showed steep contraction. It's the biggest increase in records dating to 2001. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at doctorswithoutborders.org.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg Terminal is your power up, connecting you to real-time financial data, market-moving news, powerful analytics, and an influential network of financial decision-makers around the world. Share ideas, negotiate trades, and gain the insight you need to make more informed decisions. See how the terminal can take your workflow to the next level at Bloomberg.com/professional.
When you buy tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al? Or Derek? Or Sanjay? Or Sue? Or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, Every journey matters.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search Classic Game Replays to start listening.
Where do sports, culture, and basketball nostalgia collide? On their podcast, Knuckleheads, NBA veterans Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles sit down with athletes, musicians, and entertainers to get brutally honest, totally unguarded conversations about everything, from current events to untold stories from the golden era of sports.
Neil. You know that, right? I tried to tip dunk all the free throw line one time.
Search Knuckleheads on TuneIn to listen.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying
to standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, coming up, Dave Wilson and his chart of the day. It's already that time where we get serenaded by whatever Dave Wilson picks to serenade us with.
Exactly. We'll get to that in just a moment. Looking forward to it. Let's get back to your top business stories. Saw some headlines just crossing. Here is Charlie Pellet.
All over those headlines, here's what's going on. The Dow, the S&P, NASDAQ, they're all higher right now. 28 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. JP Morgan plans an office return with half of traders back in July. JP Morgan Chase shares are up by 0.3%. Also, President Trump says he will be signing an executive order on policing tomorrow. He will be holding a news conference to discuss those changes. A rebound from overnight losses turned into a full-blown risk-on surge after the Fed followed through on a pledge to buy corporate bonds under an emergency lending program. S&P up 10, well off session highs, up by 0.3%. The Dow now up just 2 points, little change. NASDAQ up 98, that is a gain of 1%. Gold down $5 the ounce at $17.25, down 0.3%. 10-year yield 0.70%. Crude West Texas Intermediate up 1.9%, 36.96 a barrel. Again, recapping the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ holding on to gains. S&P up by 10 points. Stocks opened lower today on growing concern about a second wave of the pandemic. Dr. Joshua Sharfstein is Vice Dean at Johns Hopkins University, and on Bloomberg Television this morning, he told us he is concerned about complacency.
China has, not hesitated to use some pretty aggressive powers to shut down the virus when it starts to move, things that we really wouldn't do in the United States. But even short of that in the United States, I think people have sort of psychologically moved on maybe in some areas, and that creates an even more fertile ground for spread.
The Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. Amazon has told congressional investigators examining the market power of the largest tech companies that it will make CEO Jeff Bezos available to testify this summer. Amazon shares today, they're up by 1%. And GE says David Joyce, longtime head of its aviation business and a vice chair of the parent company, will step down after 40 years with the manufacturing giant. GE down 0.8%. Dow just turning negative, down 5 now, little changed. S&P up 9, a gain of 0.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
There's a lady who shows
So, okay.
all that glitters is
First of all, if you don't know this, then just go away. Just go away.
We can't help you. There's
Yeah.
nothing for you here.
We're done. We're done. But the other thing I want to say, if you have not seen the Heart version of this, you need to Google it because it's incredible. When they won,
Heart, the band?
Yeah. When Led Zeppelin got Kennedy Center honors,
Oh.
Heart did this song. And it was pretty incredible. Anyway, Dave Wilson, come on in. I mean, it's such a great song.
Absolutely.
What does it mean with the chart?
And have you ever, can I just say, you got to like Google the words in that song. We've done that as a family and like read through. And you're just like, what does this mean? What does this mean? And it's just great.
It means whatever you want it to mean.
Yeah, basically, right? It does. Exactly.
Absolutely. And in this case, it's all about the glittering and the gold because there is a tie-in to today's chart, which basically tracks the ratio between the value of the S&P 500 and the price of an ounce of gold. It's something that Nick Colas over at Data Trek Research, the co-founder of that firm, had in a report late last week where he was looking back 50 years and basically saying, if you look at stocks now by comparison to gold, as he put it, and I'm quoting, we're a long, long way from stocks being dramatically overvalued. Roughly speaking, the S&P 500 has been about 1.6 times the price of gold in the past half century. And at the end of last week, it was at about 1.8, a little bit less than that. So not that far out of line with historical averages. And when you go back to 1999, 2000, when stocks were peaking after the internet-driven bull market of the 90s, you got figures 5.5 plus for this ratio. So, put it this way. Sure, it's higher than the average where the ratio is now, but it's about 70% lower than it was at its peak in October 1999. So that gives you some idea of how things stack up when you look at these two markets by comparison with each other. And if you want to see it, folks, and you haven't already got the chart, send me an email. I'll get it to you along with the explanation that goes with it and everything I do going forward. The email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
And can I just say, going back to Heart and Stairway of Heaven, sorry, Dave, but it's like incredible. Jason Bonham, John Bonham's son, like actually got up on the stage and played drums. Like it was just incredible. Gospel choir, you name it. We play it in the house. We crank it up pretty loudly.
I feel like we're getting a real window into the master lifestyle here.
Well, I have to say, my oldest brother, George, loved Led Zeppelin, so I grew up, listening to it. And so, but to see this version of it, it's pretty amazing. Dave Wilson.
And I'm going to give you another song.
Ooh,
same sort of idea.
What?
Gretchen Wilson and Alice in Chains doing Heart's Barracuda.
Oh, I could totally see that.
If you're not familiar with that, you should go track it down on YouTube. It's great.
What'd you do this weekend, Dave?
What did I do this week? Not a heck of a lot, frankly.
Really?
Yeah.
How come? What
kind
happened?
of casual. I went food shopping.
Oh, how'd that, what was that like?
Actually, I'd gone a few weeks ago, and it wasn't bad at all this time. There were no lines. I mean, I went late Saturday afternoon, no lines. You could get around. It wasn't that hard to socially distance.
People wearing masks?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay.
I think you had to get in the store. I mean, we are talking about New Jersey, where they do pay attention to these things. So, yeah, I mean, pretty easily done. I mean, not like it was a few weeks ago where you had a whole line trying to get in the store. So things have definitely changed.
Yeah, Governor Murphy is very clear about don't be a knucklehead, basically.
That's it.
Is that his quote?
I think he's used it. Yeah.
He's
don't be a
certainly
knucklehead.
used the word knucklehead enough.
Yeah.
They even put it up on signs along the highways, like the Turnpike or the Parkway or whatever.
Don't be a knucklehead.
I do like that you dunked on some of the rest of the country, and rightly so, Dave, that are like, it's fine.
Well,
I don't need a mask.
Dave, New Jersey knows how to do it, right?
As far as I'm concerned.
Me too. No argument here, babe.
Oh, boy. The two of you. Like Jersey proud, Jersey strong.
That's it.
Whatever it is. All right, Dave Wilson, we'll talk to you
Whatever
in
it is. Just watch it there, buddy.
All right. I'm
We
far
will
enough
soon
away
be
from you.
back in the studio together.
Will we?
I don't know.
Is it that really?
I don't know. I have no idea. Or at least
you and
we'll
I
be
haven't
socially
seen each
distanced.
other in person since March 13th.
Isn't that amazing? I was counting
Crazy.
the months like over the weekend because sometimes it feels like it was yesterday.
Week 14.
Yeah.
Here we are. All right, let's get back down to D.C. Nancy Lyons is there with some world national headlines. Hey, Nancy.
Hey, Jason. Protesters in Atlanta marched to the state capitol today to demand change after the fatal police shooting of Rayshard Brooks. A medical examiner has labeled his death a homicide with 2 gunshots to the back. One officer has been fired, and Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard says charges could be filed later this week.
One of the things that we must attempt to finalize before we make a decision is to confirm the ballistics. We try to make sure that the projectiles in the body of Mr. Brooks, that we can expertly trace them to a firearm.
Senate Republicans are poised to unveil an extensive package of policing changes that includes new restrictions on police chokeholds and other practices. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, the sole African-American Republican in the Senate, has been crafting the package set to roll out on Wednesday. Democrats in the House, who've released their own proposals, say the GOP package does not go far enough. The Supreme Court is ruling that a landmark civil rights law does protect gay, lesbian, and transgender people from discrimination in employment. It's a resounding victory for LGBT rights. The court decided by a 6-3 vote that a key provision of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, known as Title VII, that bars job discrimination because of sex, does cover bias against gay and lesbian workers. Several NFL players for the Cowboys and the Texans have tested positive for COVID-19. Among them, the Cowboys' star running back, Ezekiel Elliott. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing for a highly personalized experience? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's fast-paced environment, where the only constants are change and volatility, you need a prime broker who's both steady and agile, focused on supporting your needs so that you can focus on growing your business and producing results. Exceptional client service and advocating for our clients is at the core of what we do. Our award-winning high-touch team is just one of the benefits of working with BNY Mellon. We help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Are you interested in a challenge?
What if the world listened more? Maybe it could become a better place. Because when we really listen, we start to notice things that don't sound quite right. They might not seem obvious at first, but listen closely and they stand out like a sore plum. And the more we glisten, the more we learn. Our ears help us find belter solutions. And things can change from this to something a little more like this. The new Honda Jazz is a hybrid. Honda, the power of dreams.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. You can do your bit by continuing to work from home if you can and avoiding public transport. If you have to use public transport, from today you must now wear a face covering at all times. Avoid peak hours and wash your hands before and after travel. For everyone's safety, we regularly clean our services with antiviral disinfectant and will be providing hand sanitizer across our network. For more information, search TfL's Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
There's lots to discover when you join Tesco Mobile, like our big deals on big data SIMs, including our 8 gig SIM for just £10 a month. You'll also find great service with 99% UK network coverage. Visit us in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Ends 26th of the 7th, 20. 12-month contract and unlock 4G enabled phone required. Phased policy applies. 99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK. Charges and terms at tescomobile.com/terms.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying to
standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
Ready for a one-of-a-kind look at the NFL? On the PFF NFL podcast, Steve Palazzolo and Sam Munson interpret the unique stats of Pro Football Focus to analyze the league, uncover secret superstars, and discuss which teams to watch out for in the next Super Bowl.
Let's talk some football. Let's do it, Steve. All sorts of stuff. We're going to do most improved defenses around the NFL. Solomon Wilcots, our very own. He went into some detail over at PFF.com. Most improved defenses around the NFL.
Search PFF NFL on TuneIn to listen.
The Woj Pod with Adrian Wojnarowski.
Doris, you had reason to believe that you needed to get a test for the coronavirus.
Right. Well, let's just start with the headline, which is I did test positive for COVID-19. I was so tired from Saturday the 14th through Tuesday, March 17th. I kid you not, I could not be out of bed for 5 minutes without needing to go back to bed and lay down.
Search the Woj Pod to listen.
Ready to talk brass tacks on what's happening in Major League Baseball? Turn to the Effectively Wild podcast from Fangraphs for daily statistics, analysis, and commentary.
One team will say, yeah, we're going to keep paying minor leaguers their stipend, and another team will say, we're going to extend the stipend through this month, and then another team will say, nope, we're cutting them off. So are extending it at least through August, which would basically be the end of the minor league regular season.
Search Effectively Wild on TuneIn to listen.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellett. 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. Stocks have paired gains going into the final few minutes of trading after surging in the wake of a Federal Reserve pledge to follow through on corporate bond purchases. Right now, the S&P 500 index is up 14. That is a gain of 0.5%. The Dow up 43 points, up 0.2%, and NASDAQ is up 113. That is a gain of just about 1.2%. 10-year is down 1/32 with a yield of 0.70%. Gold down 0.4%, 17.23 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude now up 2.1%, 37 even a barrel. Recapping, S&P higher by 14, up 0.4%. I'm Charlie Pellett. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no.
Who's gonna drive you home?
Honey, please, I'll do the driving.
Drive on.
Excuse me, I want to drive.
Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the drive to the close.
That funky music.
the dawn
on Bloomberg Radio.
It is time for the drive to the close. Back with us is Mark Travis. He's president and CEO at Intrepid Capital. He joins us once again on the phone from Jacksonville, Florida. And Mark, it is good to have you back with us. I got to ask you first, though, man. We're seeing headlines out of Florida about virus cases, and I'm just curious, what are you seeing? What's it like in Florida right now? Because, you know, safe to say what goes on in the virus is going to determine our economic outlook, our capital, you know, our corporate profit outlook, businesses getting back to normal, and ultimately our market outlook. And I think the pause in the equity markets really showed that last week. So what are you seeing?
Well, interestingly enough, Carol, it's probably not only the heat, but the unbearable humidity already. But in my corner of the Sunshine State, which is northeast Florida, you know, Jacksonville, St. Augustine, that area, the number of cases has been really quite contained relative to Dade and Broward. So I don't follow on a case-by-case basis in the community, but we've been very fortunate in terms of number of deaths in this part of the state and or cases. So maybe we, you know, flatten the curve early to help, but it doesn't seem to be, at least geographically to this region, it doesn't seem to be meaningfully impacted.
And so that certainly, as you allude to, Mark, isn't necessarily the case across the country. And so as you try to get a reasonable and honest economic picture and how that may play through, whether it's consumer spending or business continuity and folks getting back to the office, how do you factor that into your investment thesis?
Well, Jason, I think that one of my favorite Buffett quotes among many is when the tide goes out, you get to see who's swimming naked. And I think that what we've done for 25 years at Intrepid is focus on free cash flow, rational business valuation, strong balance sheets. And so that's coming back into focus. I think that so we're always looking for that, and that's I think that's really critical as we go through this. To me, who knows if we have a second wave or we have a second lockdown, and how that affects business. And to me, it comes back to leverage. And I think what's probably helped the market today, as y'all know, the markets, pre-opening were off 600 or 700 Dow points, and the Fed came in and said, "Oh, they really are going to buy corporate bonds." Mm-hmm. To me, it comes back to debt, and whether you're a mortgage holder on a mall, and a Cheesecake Factory says, "Oh, we stopped paying rent on our 230 stores," or you're a private equity investor with a lot of leverage on top of your equity. Everybody's focused on that leverage, and supporting the credit markets is step one. But I also think, frankly, that's probably where some of the better risk-adjusted opportunities are for people in the capital markets.
Okay, so talk to us about that. I am curious what kind of moves you guys have been doing. You've got a bunch of funds. I think you're the lead on the Intrepid Capital Fund. You guys have a balanced portfolio and, an income fund. So talk to us about those funds in particular. What kind of adjustments maybe have you been making in this environment?
Well, let's talk about the income fund first, because what we've always done, Carol, is we're a short duration, high yield fixed income investor. So our duration has always been short, whether it should be or not. We're really looking for what I call a 3-foot putt. So we typically don't lend more than about 3 years. I chuckle when I thought about this being the drive time, because my next suggestion, I would not suggest you ingest before you try to drive, particularly out of Manhattan, which would be something that produces marijuana. Believe it or not, we've found a couple of marijuana bonds that we're excited about. The number of medical marijuana users in the state of Florida has gone up substantially. There's talk of legislation to allow, banks to bank producers. And so there are a couple of issues here that I think have merit. One is the Curaleaf 13% term loan of 1 of 24. And the other one is TrueLeave, which is I had it here right in front of me, is also a 24 issue. It's a 9 3/4 coupon. So We think these are very well covered, and there's a strong demand for CBD oil and medical marijuana. And so those are something that are a little bit off the grid that we actually own in our income fund.
And so where else do you invest in a place like this? You talked about balance sheets. You talked about free cash flow. Are there, I think you've invested in some of the dollar stores, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, one that's worked out really well, Jason, has been Dollar General. As you're probably familiar, KKR took it private years back and then has come back public, and it's done well since then. So that's one that's really worked out. The one that we're still anticipating improvement on is Dollar Tree. Mm-hmm. They merged with Family Dollar stores, and I think that the Dollar Tree management has been excellent, trying to kind of rationalize the Family Dollar older stores, if you will, and refurbish them to the point where they're producing like they'd hoped. But Dollar Tree, it's funny if you're familiar at all with Party City.
Yeah,
things like helium, the supply of helium affects stores like Dollar Tree and Party City because people go there for tchotchkes, for birthday parties and what have you. So, but that type of discounted retailer is not as subject to being Amazon in our view, if you follow me, and it tends to be more impulsive purchase and tends to serve probably a lower income strata that is not as internet centric a buyer as somebody in your neighborhood might be.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, as we wrap up, I got to ask you one more question, which is, in your backyard, are we going to see what was formerly known as the world's largest cocktail party with your Georgia Bulldogs playing the Gators this fall? What's your prediction?
It's interesting you mentioned that. I certainly hope so, because SEC football is such a large part of this part of the world. I think the challenge for all the SEC schools is a large majority of their revenue comes from ticket sales and actually people in their stadiums, whether it's at the Swamp in Gainesville or in Sanford Stadium in Athens, Georgia, as you mentioned. So whereas, say, Shad Khan owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, it's a TV contract, and I'm not sure they care if you show up. But let's hope so, because it's one hell of a party.
It is.
Hope to see you.
Yeah, that would be a fun afternoon for sure. All right. Really good to spend some time with you. Mark Travis joining us from Jacksonville, President and CEO of Intrepid Capital. The close, it's coming up next. This is Bloomberg.
With a new day comes...
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
What if the world listened more? Maybe it could become a better place. Because when we really listen, we start to notice things that don't sound quite right. They might not seem obvious at first, but listen closely and they stand out like a sore plum. And the more we listen, the more we learn. Our ears help us find belter solutions. And things can change from this to something a little more like this. The new Honda Jazz is a hybrid. Honda, the power of dreams.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed, retrieve data fast. Scalability, grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity, easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. You can do your bit by continuing to work from home if you can and avoiding public transport. If you have to use public transport, from today you must now wear a face covering at all times, avoid peak hours and wash your hands before and after travel. For everyone's safety, we regularly clean our services with antiviral disinfectant and will be providing hand sanitizer across our network. For more information, search TfL's Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Are you ready for the realest first-hand take of what's happening in the NBA? On their podcast, All the Smoke, former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson bring their fiery intensity to the mic, dishing on the latest news and drama from on and off the court without boundaries.
Half man, half amazing. My friend, our brother, Vince Carter, man. Welcome to the show.
Yo, what's up, man?
What's up, my brother?
Man,
Search All the Smoke on TuneIn to listen.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. There you have it, sound of the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange as we wrap up trading on this Monday, June 15th, an update for the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ. We begin with this headline from the Bloomberg Professional Service. U.S. virus cases rise 0.9%. That is below the past week's average of 1.1%. Stocks did move higher today after surging earlier in the session in the wake of a Federal Reserve pledge to follow through on corporate bond purchases, but it was a volatile day. Got to keep in mind at the worst level of the day, we had the Dow Jones Industrial Average opening down by roughly 3%. That was a drop of more than 760 points. The S&P 500 index did slump by as much as 2.5% amid concern a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic is emerging. We finished higher across the board with the S&P up 25, up 0.8%. The Dow up 157, up by 0.6%, and the NASDAQ Composite Index up 137 points. That was a gain today of 1.4%. The 10-year down 2/30 seconds with a yield there of 0.71%. Bottom line, though, an update across the board. Mark Travis is CEO at Intrepid Capital. He was our guest moments ago right here on Bloomberg Business Week.
And I think what's probably helped the market today, as y'all know, the markets, pre-opening were off 600 or 700 Dow points, and the Fed came in and said, they really are going to buy corporate bonds.
Hertz Global Holdings has warned prospective new stock investors they're all but certain to be wiped out as the car renter proceeds with an improbable share sale in the midst of bankruptcy proceedings. Hertz shares today lower by 33.5%. Again, the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing today. Zoom Video Communications among the day's big winners, up 8.9%. Zoom now at a record. Again, recapping, S&P up 25, a gain there of 0.8%. The Dow up 0.6, NASDAQ up 1.4%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Move around. Motion creates emotion.
I feel the earth move under my feet.
You move like they do. I've never seen anyone move that fast.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Company's called Movers and Shakers. They cost a little more, but that name cracked me up.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Mazur and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Yes, indeed. Time to take a look at some of the stocks on the move. We've got one trading session down for the week. The Monday trade, S&P 500, more of a bullish tone today. 392 names in the S&P 500 higher today, 112 lower, one unchanged. And if I look, Jason, at those major industry groups, almost all of them were higher and decent gains. Financials were up 1.2%. Consumer staples up about 1%. Real estate up almost 0.9%. So 9 of the 11 major industry groups in the S&P 500 posted gains. Healthcare was essentially unchanged, just a hair lower. Energy was down about 0.2%. So there was definitely, despite the early selling, we did see that turnaround. And I think a lot of it does have to do with what the Fed said. Corporate bond purchases, they are making sure that companies feel secure and that they have the money that they need to continue operating.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel like, as I said toward the top of the show, you know, we came into today after a weekend of a lot of headlines that were fairly negative about the spread. And, you know, despite hearing what Mark Travis said about Jacksonville, you know, there are pockets in Florida, in Texas, and in other places where you're seeing cases rise. And this national figure that we cite, and you heard Charlie read, I think is an important one to some extent. But one of the things that I think we need to keep looking at is essentially cases ex New York. It's one of the things that I've been reading a lot about is this idea, because we were the epicenter here in the tri-state area and especially New York State. And so you really need to look at some of these places where it's going up. And I do think that's what worried people. And so if this is prolonged, they wanted to make sure that, especially from a monetary policy perspective, and especially because there doesn't seem to be any real movement around fiscal, meaning Congress and the administration coming in on that side.
Does feel like they're done.
It feels like they're certainly done for now until something dramatic happens, different to change their mind. So,
well, and what we need to remember is that if you've got certain states where you're seeing numbers go up, I mean, that will prevent kind of movement around the country, right?
Yes.
Like we're all going to be hesitant to jump on a plane because you just don't know who you're going to be on a plane with if it's from one of these states where cases are going up. And as we heard earlier from Michelle Cortez from Bloomberg News, you know, it's so simple. Just put on a mask, right? That makes a difference. And, you know, but again, all of these, anything that creates some nervousness within the economy, the U.S. economy, you're going to have people hesitate to do things. That's just what it comes down to.
Well, and if I may soapbox for just a minute here, I mean, the issue is that I feel like you have too many people looking at this as a binary thing. You know, it's like there either is a virus or there isn't a virus. The fact is, there's a virus. There's a virus out there. We need to figure out how to deal with it. And I feel like too many people are being like, I just want to get back to normal. It's like, well, guess what? You're not going to get back to what life was like in January or last December anytime soon. You're not going to. You just got to live with it, and you got to figure out how to live your life in the meantime, but that's going to call for some adjustments.
And even as we saw those JP Morgan headlines that they're bringing people back, I mean, I think we expected that traders were going to come back first, right? Those have been the toughest and trickiest ones to have at home. I do want to mention one name because it was your worst performer in the S&P, Cabot Oil and Gas. They were charged with environmental crimes. This was coming from the Pennsylvania Attorney General, so we did see that stock trade a lot lower in today's session. Your number one decliner in the S&P 500.
I also want to point out Hertz. I shouldn't chuckle, but I mean, it's such a ridiculous story in many ways where Hertz, which had filed for bankruptcy, then goes out to sell shares. They get permission to sell shares, and then they come out today and basically have to say what everybody knew, which is, by the way, you're probably going to get wiped out.
The emperor has no clothes.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're saying this to you. We are going bankrupt. We have filed for bankruptcy. And the way that, you know, it works is that equity gets wiped out first.
That's right.
So
that's right. In terms of the pecking order, the financial pecking order, equity
that's just a fact. And I know that, anyway. So it's just bizarre. So that's why that stock was down 33%.
It's bizarro world. Just admit it. All right, let's take a look at the VIX, the volatility index report. As stocks moved up, ultimately, we did see the VIX track a little bit lower, down 3.7%. The VIX closing at 34.78. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up. Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson.
Open up the door, it's Dave! Who? Dave!
Hey, Mr. Wilson. Dave Wilson back with us. Your stock of the day, Momenta Pharmaceuticals.
That's right. It's a company that develops what are called biosimilar versions of existing drugs along with its own treatments. Most of its revenue comes from Glatopa, a biosimilar to the multiple sclerosis medicine Copaxone. Momenta was founded in 2001 and based on research initially done at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. The company's based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and has been publicly traded since 2004. The ticker is MNTA. Momenta shares set a record about a year after they began trading. They bounced around at lower prices until this year, when analysts' optimism about a treatment for a blood disease triggered a rally. Momenta finally broke the record today, thanks to favorable study data on another of its own drugs. The treatment's for a muscle disease called myasthenia gravis. The medication met the second stage study's main goal and was found to be safe in 4 different dosages. Momenta rose as high as $37.57 today before closing at $35.65, and that works out to a gain of about 15%.
Interesting. Well, we're keeping an eye on everything related to the drug industry, it feels like, these days. All right, Dave Wilson, thank you so much. Coming up, we are going to talk about Carlos Ghosn. Can't wait.
Oh, my God, this story. When it broke over the weekend, I'm like, what?
I know.
It's an exclusive.
It was a rare weekend email from you. You're like, read this.
Because I was like, I couldn't believe it.
I know. It was a whoa moment, for sure.
It was a whoa moment. All right. Let's get back to world and national news headlines. Ed Baxter's with us in our studio out in San Francisco. Welcome back. We missed you.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Thank you. That makes worth coming back. Thank you. Hi, Jason. New outbreaks, COVID-19 in several states are giving some governors pause at how quickly to move from phase to phase. In New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy.
Our goal is to not experience the spikes that other states are now seeing because they rushed to open too much too soon. The results are stark. We have lost too many lives in too short a period to not heed the lessons of this virus.
In New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo is personally calling businesses
and said to restaurant owners, bar owners, what are you doing? We have the guidelines. I'm looking at a picture of your establishment taken 25 minutes ago, and people are violating everything.
In California, San Francisco clears the city for what it calls Phase 2B of reopening. And Governor Gavin Newsom says hospital beds and ICU beds are at this point today able to handle a second surge, but that monitoring is extensive and that as communities in the state move forward.
But it's also incumbent upon us as individuals to be smart, to wear a face covering, to physically distance, continue to wash your hand.
He says it is a balance between causing a second and third wave and keeping people locked down and suffering the consequences of that. A Russian judge has sentenced to 16 years a Russian prison espionage charges, a U.S. citizen. U.S. Ambassador to Russia John Sullivan says it is a travesty of any justice.
I've described these proceedings as a mockery of justice, and today just confirmed it.
Now, the sentenced man is a former U.S. Marine named Paul Whelan, who has maintained his innocence through the entire proceeding. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
With perspective comes clarity.
Each week, the story seems to change.
The best experts bring you the most clarity.
Give us a sense of what's going on in the IPO market these days.
Vonnie Quinn.
Will there be an interest from LPs in newer managers here?
Paul Sweeney.
How are companies marketing their deals here in the time of COVID and social distancing?
Bloomberg Markets, weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative, and that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
With COVID-19, so much is unknown.
Is this the worst you've seen?
But we are committed to getting you every piece of information we can as soon as we can.
Tell us about this first big win you have. What is it, 24 million N95 masks?
Fewer unknowns.
Who's winning here? Where is the pressure right now?
That's our goal.
What worries you the most? The time it's going to take for a vaccine?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance.
You know that feeling when you get more than you expected? Like discovering that the box of chocolates has a whole other layer underneath? Or scoring extra poppadoms with your takeaway? Or joining Tesco Mobile and finding out you get the latest phones and 99% UK network coverage? Yeah, that moment. Feels good, right? Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
99% 4G population coverage indoors and outdoors across UK.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
If you want to find out what the laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
The IBM Flash storage solution can be broken down into 3 S's. Speed. Retrieve data fast. Scalability. Grow your storage as your business grows. Simplicity. Easily migrate and integrate with existing systems. Oh, and there's a 4th. It's surprisingly affordable, with a recommended monthly price of £200 for 26 terabytes. Order by the 30th of June and pay nothing for 90 days. Visit ibm.biz/flash offer now.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. You can do your bit by continuing to work from home if you can and avoiding public transport. If you have to use public transport, from today you must now wear a face covering at all times. Avoid peak hours and wash your hands before and after travel. For everyone's safety, we regularly clean our services with antiviral disinfectant and will be providing hand sanitizer across our network. For more information, search TfL's Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids.
Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs. Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
He does! Fabry wins it!
To standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
To help keep you and your loved ones safe, TuneIn has the latest guidelines from the CDC. CDC says there are still precautions to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Wash hands often for 20 seconds and encourage others to do the same. Use hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol if no soap or water is available. For the latest stories and updates on COVID-19, search Coronavirus News on TuneIn.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. This headline from the Bloomberg Professional Service, Embraer, the Brazilian airplane maker, has been cut to junk by S&P. Stocks edged higher in volatile trading after the Federal Reserve followed through on a pledge to buy corporate bonds under an emergency lending program. S&P 500 index did advance by about 0.8% after swinging from a loss of as much as 2.5% amid concern about a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic. S&P up 25, again up 0.8%, now at 3,066. The Dow up 157 points, up 0.6%, and NASDAQ up 137 points, a gain of 1.4%. 10-year down 230 seconds, yield 0.71%. Gold down 0.3%, 17.26 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 2.2%, 37.05 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Well, let's turn now to our global business executive editor. That's Brian Brenner. He joins us from London to talk about a story that completely captivated Carol and me over the weekend. I think it's fair to say it's all about Nissan and Carlos Ghosn. And Brian, I have to say, this is one of these things where someone gets in trouble for something and they say, I got set up. And people are like, yeah, whatever. All right, bro. Tell it to the judge. This is a case where you read this and you think, oh, wait a second, that may be true. Tell us about what's going on with Nissan and Carlos Ghosn.
Well, you probably know that Carlos Ghosn has been part of this multi-act drama ever since his arrest in late 2018 and then dramatic escape from Japan to Lebanon at the start of the year. And what happened is we were able to piece together a story based on emails, documents, and conversations, interviews with people in the know that kind of suggests for the very first time that Ghosn may have a point, that there was a concerted effort at Nissan all through 2018 and maybe even close to a year before he was arrested to move him out, to get rid of him. And the reason why they wanted to do that was to rearrange the alliance between Nissan and Renault more into Nissan's favor.
So, okay, with all of this reporting that's been, unearthed, and I just wondered, so the charges against Ghosn, does it make it seem more likely that those were made up by the Japanese officials of Nissan or what?
Well, this article does not litigate the indictment against Carlos Ghosn. These involve financial misconduct allegations, and those are still out there. Now, when Carlos Ghosn escaped from Japan and went to Lebanon, Lebanon and Japan have no extradition treaty. So the only way we'll ever kind of have those issues settled in court would be if Ghosn were to go back, but that's quite unlikely. I think what's interesting here is that Nissan has consistently said this was always about the alleged financial misbehavior and nothing else. And it doesn't look that way. It looks like that there was a secondary motivation, which makes this a far more complex picture than Nissan was letting on.
And so what does this do for Ghosn's case, either legally or even sort of in the court of public opinion, Brian?
Well, I think it will change perceptions. Ghosn had been trying to make the case that he was a totally innocent victim here, but he had no evidence. I think this does provide some support to the idea that there was a secondary, political agenda behind, what happened to him at Nissan. One of his colleagues who was arrested with him is still in Japan, and he's facing trial. Greg Kelly is his name, in a few months. So this new information may fit into that case in some manner, and that case is kind of a proxy for the Ghosn case. Even though Ghosn will probably never make it back to Japan and never be tried, these issues will be kind of aired out in the Kelly case and may ultimately shape the legacy that Carlos Ghosn enjoys the rest of his life.
Feels like, Brian, like The Firm 2.0, the movie. And I just feel like, it does make you look at this differently, right? That there were internal executives at Nissan who didn't necessarily like what Carlos Ghosn was doing. And anybody who knows the auto industry and followed Carlos Ghosn, I mean, he was revered. He was the auto executive to be in terms of this alliance he created and helped, create, companies that were having troubles and gave them kind of new life. So they had to know internally that it wasn't going to be easy if they weren't happy with what he was doing to get rid of him.
That's right. I mean, Carlos Ghosn was a hero inside Japan. We go back to the late 90s. Nissan was given up for dead. Renault came in, pumped a lot of cash into the company, and then brought in Carlos Ghosn, who kind of turned the company around in several years. So there was his reputation, his gold-plated reputation in Japan. Then beyond that was the structure of the alliance. Ghosn had a tremendous amount of power. And when he started to, signal that he wanted to actually integrate Nissan and Renault even more than before, a lot of people inside Nissan rebelled, and they were very upset by this. And our story kind of chronicles how that was translated into this campaign to dethrone Ghosn.
Well, it's an unbelievable piece of reporting. And, I think especially if one takes the time, if our readers and listeners take the time to sort of look at the body of work that you and the team have produced on this, Brian, I mean, it's just an amazing saga. Brian Bremner is Global Business Executive Editor for Bloomberg. He joined us on the phone from London. I just think about all the work that Matt Campbell and the crew have done on this. And
it's incredible. But
it is cinematic.
Remember, exactly, go back to when he was arrested and then the Great Escape. Then it's like
smuggling him out, into the hotel, through the music box, and then on the train, and then he goes through security. It's crazy. He gets on the private jet.
It is cinematic. It's
and then changes planes in Turkey. Remember that? And there's this whole thing.
That's right.
No, it's unbelievable. Yeah.
And it's not done yet. And we'll have to follow that trial of the other executive that's still in Japan because that could be really key. All right, you're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly. Coming up, an interesting story also on the Bloomberg has to do with education. And as we know, the impact of schools maybe not coming back in the fall impacts the communities that surround them. So we're going to get into that. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Wall Street's wild ride ended with gains of 0.6 to nearly 1.5% across the averages. The Dow adding 158, the Nasdaq 137, the S&P 25. But investors had started the trading day with deep losses, worried about a return of the coronavirus as more states open up and 20 states report an uptick in cases. Then, though, the Federal Reserve promised to follow through with corporate bond purchases, and investors clawed back all their losses. The new owners of Forever 21 are interested in JCPenney. Authentic Brands teamed up with mall owners Simon Property and Brookfield Property Partners to buy the bankrupt retail chain, and now they're talking about doing the same thing for JCPenney, which is trying to get a business plan approved by the middle of next month, or it could run out of cash. And JP Morgan Chase will start bringing more traders back to work next week. The biggest U.S. bank will start with volunteers and ramp up from 20% of workers to about half by the middle of next month. I'm Joan Doniger, Bloomberg Radio.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
You're living in a world built on science, political and economic.
You've got to believe the labour market gets hit.
Computer and medical.
Clarify where we are on a test.
It all makes a difference.
What do you think needs to happen in terms of governmental response?
And it's all here.
He expects the virus to peak quite a long time from now.
Get your science straight.
The hand-washing campaign, is this actually a good strategy?
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
If you want to find out what the best laptop is for streaming all your favourite box sets back to back while sitting in your garden, you could ask an algorithm, or someone called Al, or Sue, or Sanjay, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hi, you're talking to Ali on Shop Live.
Isn't it nice to get advice from another human being? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone. And becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Listen. That's a dream. Everyone has them, jingling away in the back of our minds. And most of the time, that's where dreams stay. So easy to ignore. Anything can drown them out, and everything does. But at Honda, we listen to our dreams. We get right up close. And on really good days, they become reality. From 2022, Honda's mainstream cars will only be hybrid or electric. Honda, the power of dreams.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Stay close to College Hoops Conversation with College Basketball Talk podcast from NBC Sports. Join Rob Dowster and Bobby Reagan for weekly recaps of what's happening in every conference. Nostalgic flashbacks to classic games. And big picture discussions of the future of the sport.
Always knew was a legend, and you always knew was one of the great coaches because everyone always told you how great this coach was. But he never really reached point of either.
Search College Basketball Talk on TuneIn to listen. Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston, Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco, Bloomberg 960 to the country, Sirius XM Channel 119, and around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Well, this is a story we've been following very closely, and it came up in a conversation we had last week with the president of Ithaca College. It's all about college towns and the economic impact that school not resuming in the same way may have on local economies, Carol.
Yeah, as we know, it's not just about the institution, but everything connected with it, the supply chain, if you will, of an educational organization. All right, we'll get to that story from Janet Lauren in just a moment. Let's get back to your top business headlines. Hey, Charlie Pellet.
Hello there. We are following a couple of stories for you after the bell. First of all, Fortnite maker Epic said to be nearing funding its $17 billion value. T. Rowe Price, Bailey Gifford said close to be making an Epic investment. Also, developing story, T-Mobile says it has been experiencing a voice and data issue around the country. Says in a tweet it is working to fix the issue. Other news reports say it's not just T-Mobile, but also Verizon, Sprint, and AT&T. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advanced today. today, stocks edging higher, a volatile session after the Federal Reserve followed through on a pledge to buy corporate bonds under an emergency lending program. Stocks surged after that announcement at 2 p.m. Wall Street time. S&P 500 index did close up today by 0.8% after swinging from a loss of as much as 2.5% amid concern about a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic. S&P ended up with a gain today of just about 0.8% higher by 25 points. The Dow up 157, up 0.6. NASDAQ up 137, up 1.4%. 10-year down 4/32 yield there, 0.71%. Gold down 0.2%, 17.26 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 2.3%, up 82 cents a barrel, 37.08. As for market technicals, Katie Stockton is the founder of Fairlead Strategies.
We have weakened momentum for many of the constituents of the S&P 500, and that does bode well for additional weakness here in the next couple of weeks. So I think that's what we're seeing. It's something that needs to persist in order to generate a short-term oversold condition, broadly speaking. But that's when we would revisit the market for buying opportunities.
The 10-year, the yield is 0.71%. Gold down 0.2%, 17.26 the ounce. Crude up 2.3%, 37.08 a barrel. United Airlines Holdings planning to raise $5 billion by borrowing against its customer loyalty program. That's Mileage Plus, stepping up efforts to boost liquidity amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Shares of UAL Holdings, they are down 1.7%. American Airlines fell 0.2%. Really a mixed day for a lot of the airlines. Delta up 0.1%. Southwest up by 1.3%. The Jets ETF, JETS, on the ticker there, it was down 0.8%. Recapping, S&P up 25, up 0.8%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Well, the impact of the virus on education, it has the potential to cast an increasingly wider net, including those college towns who fear COVID-19 will leave them as ghost towns. This story on the Bloomberg terminal, it's written by Janet Lauren, endowments reporter at Bloomberg News. She joins us on the phone in New York City. You know, Janet, schools, Jason and I have talked to a lot of heads of colleges and universities and those involved with university sports. There's still a lot of questions about what happens come fall. And it's not just about the educational organizations opening up, but it's their whole community that surrounds them.
Yes, absolutely. It's not just the colleges, but it's the local coffee shops and the local bakeries and the cute little boutique that you want to survive when college life is back as we know it. And the question is, they're not getting customers, the students, the parents, the people attending sports games or conferences coming into those towns. So it's a huge change for them as well.
And so, I mean, what are they doing about it? What can they do about it? Or is it just a matter of wait and see, Janet?
Well, a lot of them are hoping that if is a big question, students come back in August and September, things might get back to normal. But as we point out in the story today, Lafayette College in Easton, Pennsylvania, just because you're coming back here, we're encouraging students to stay on campus and not get exposure. So that also, you're pinning your hopes on students returning, but again, it's not going to be life as normal that you're hanging out at the bars in a college town like you normally would be.
Yeah, I mean, right. It's just, it has a big impact. And I do wonder, what ultimately will happen. And I think, I guess we just still don't know. I feel like a lot of schools and universities, Janet, have put, maybe end of June, early July. They've got to start making decisions, right? Because plans have to be made. And I guess these communities just have to be watching this really closely.
Absolutely. And, the best laid decisions may also change. Most colleges are saying this is what our plans are, but, you can have 3 or 4 permutations between now and September, depending on what happens with the virus.
Yeah, I mean, one of the fascinating things, Janet, I think, and you've seen it much more closely than we have, is just the variations here. It's like the decisions are really all over the map in many ways. And I know some of it has to do with geography, but it feels like some of it has to do with economics, too, for individual schools.
Yeah, no, a lot of the schools are saying this is what we're planning to do. Ideally, come in early, leave by Thanksgiving. But, there are some early leaders, the University of Cambridge in the UK, the Cal State system, that said we're going to be online. And, I think that they're doing planning that in some ways may be more realistic. You read what's going on in colleges are making all these different scenarios for being on campus. Mitch Daniels, the president of Purdue, testified at a Senate hearing 2 weeks ago about all the plexiglass that they were buying.
Yeah.
And, you hear some of that is on back order, but how does that actually work? And are you spinning your wheels for something that may actually not happen? It's very interesting. And should you be spending more time on figuring out how you're going to make it online for the first couple of months?
What I like about your story, Janet, just to wrap up, is, you put numbers on it. You talk about the University of Nebraska-Lincoln and, their games, each game about half a dozen per season brings in an economic impact of $5.2 million to the Lincoln metropolitan area. So, we're talking real money, right? And this has big repercussions. And especially if you think about some of those with the really big sports teams.
Well, I heard a statistic that for Tuscaloosa, Alabama, home of University of Alabama, it's $20 million.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. It just grows exponentially.
All right, Janet Lauren, thank you so much. Education reporter for Bloomberg, joining us on the phone from New York. Really good story, and one we know our customers are very interested in. We're interested in, as parents of prospective college students.
And you guys, right? You've got to be watching your family, and your kids are so into, athletics in terms of what's going on and what it means. And you think about seasons. So, all right, we'll continue to track that and so much more. Let's get back to world and national news headlines and back on over to Ed Baxter. Hey, Ed.
All right. Hey, Carol. Hey, Jason. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that federal law protects gay and transgender workers from job discrimination. It is a watershed 6-3 decision that gives LGBT people in dozens of states civil rights they had sought for decades. New York is working on legislation to reform law enforcement practices. Governor Andrew Cuomo.
First, that an officer must report a weapon discharge within 6 hours. Second, police departments and courts must track all the arrest data so we have all the facts, race, ethnicity.
And to have physical and mental health help available at all times for policing calls. The family of Rashard Brooks, meanwhile, shot by police in Atlanta, is speaking out today, saying officers involved need to be criminally prosecuted to the fullest extent.
We are tired. Guys, we're tired. And we are frustrated. Most importantly, we're heartbroken. So we need justice for Rashard Brooks.
Cousin Tiara Brooks. San Francisco announcing it is entering into Phase 2B of reopening today, and Governor Gavin Newsom says hospital surge capacity has grown.
If the numbers go up, hospitalizations go up, the question is, can we absorb that? And the answer today, at least, is yes.
Today, he says hospital beds, the whole capacity about now below 6%. With several states reporting surges after reopening, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy says easy as we go.
If we open too quickly without restoring any consumer confidence, quite simply, there would be no customers.
And the goal, of course, he says, is safely reopening. Global news 24 hours a day in San Francisco. I'm Ed Baxter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. NJIT faculty mentored Christoph Camacho when he was a student, helping him co-found a startup and patent a device that uses drone technology for reforestation and to collect valuable data for land management.
I founded Paratrees back in 2016, taking what I learned from my research at NJIT and migrating it to a startup. Our technology is to really enhance land management operations. So we work very closely with land management companies. So we have a drone that performs precision reforestation, and we do storm damage assessment, having access to drones that can collect data so it's much faster. And what is more important, we help them drive management decisions. NJIT has been there every step of the way, going full force with my company.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Market upheavals.
The narrative is driven by...
When you buy tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm? Or to someone called Al? Or Derek? Or Sanjay? Or Sue? Or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience?
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
At Honda, we believe in our ears. Listening can help solve some of life's biggest conundrums. For example, if a car breaks down and there's no one around to hear it, does it make a sound? The answer is yes. The new Jazz Hybrid will pinpoint your location automatically and send for help at the tap of a button. And with its personal assistant, you can find the answers to other conundrums like, where is a good vegan gluten-free pizza place with free parking? The new Honda Jazz. Hybrid and connected. Honda. The power of dreams. Connectivity subscription available in selected grades.
If you have to drive, then it's more important than ever to watch your speed. As London starts to reopen, there are going to be more people on our streets. There'll be more people cycling, more people walking to work or to the shops. If you must drive, avoid the morning and evening peaks when the roads will be busier. We want the streets to be safe for everyone, all the time. So watch your speed. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
30 for 30 is up to bat again with Long Gone Summer, the new documentary chronicling Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa's legendary race to topple the single-season home run record in 1998. Go behind the scenes with TuneIn's Long Gone Summer channel, featuring podcasts like Jalen and Jacoby, The After Show, where they discuss the film with director A.J. Schnock. Plus, keep the nostalgia going with classic game replays from Cubs and Cardinals history. Search Long Gone Summer to listen.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying
to stand out stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
The Right Time with Bomani Jones.
While he was gone, Al had some kind of vote to make him the managing. You remember he used to come up all the time in the Raiders game that he was the managing general partner. By the way, don't forget, there was a lot going on in Munich. You know how tired that man was to come back and find out that Al Davis had strong-armed his team from him while he was gone?
Search The Right Time with Bomani Jones to listen.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. A move higher in volatile trading after the Federal Reserve followed through on a pledge to buy corporate bonds under an emergency lending program. S&P up 25, up 0.8%. The Dow up 157, up 0.6. NASDAQ up 137, up by 1.4%. 10-year down 430 seconds with a yield of 0.71%. Gold down 0.3%, 17.26 the ounce, and crude West Texas Intermediate up 2.3%, 37.08 a barrel. Again, recapping, S&P up 25, up 0.8%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Carol Masser here with you on a Monday afternoon, a busy Monday, to say the least. Totally. Let's head down to Atlanta, my hometown. Mike Hayford joins us. He's the president and CEO of NCR. And Mike, great to have you here with Carol and myself. How's it going down there? How you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me today.
So tell us what's going on when it comes to this transformation that we're going to see, because we know that things are going to go to a different sort of normal. We've been talking a lot about, getting back to the office, but also just as consumers, a different sort of interaction that we're going to be having. How are you sort of seeing it, and what goes into it from your perspective?
Yeah, Jason, that's a great question. So if you think about NCR, you literally interact with us every day. We think pretty much everybody in this country probably touches us every day. You may not actually know it, but if you go to an ATM, chances are it'll be one of our devices. If you go to a restaurant, chances are you're interacting with our point-of-sale system. If you go to a grocery store, or a big box store like a Walmart. And so as we look at it, we have physical devices that people interact with. ATM, point of sale, self-checkout, a gas pump at a gas station, convenience store. And as we've seen the coronavirus and how people interact, your prior segment there talking about people not as comfortable touching things, and I think somebody mentioned a phone soap or UV light.
Yeah.
So, which is great. I actually have that at home. And same question, does it really work? I don't know. But I tell you what.
But the lights are really cool, right, Mike?
Yeah. But I'm much more comfortable touching my phone, as my wife is. We clean our phones periodically. But I know I'd rather touch my phone and activate a gas pump than actually touch the gas pump. Like we have a customer called Come and Go based out of Iowa, and we activated that ability so you can go up to the pump and do all the interaction you need. You obviously put the plastic glove on and put the pump handle in, but you eliminate touching all those keys and those numbers. Same thing when this thing first hit, mid-March. Walmart gave us a call. We provide self-checkout devices for Walmart, and you can scan all your items at a Walmart, but then you had to touch the device to complete the payment, and they wanted to eliminate that. So we worked with them. So you literally just use your phone. So we've really emphasized to interact, what we call contactless commerce. To continue to do commerce, do it on a device that you're comfortable with, like your phone, and then we'll let the phone talk to an ATM, talk to a gas pump, talk to self-checkout, or talk to a POS at a restaurant.
So, you think about what you guys do and how it can help kind of the world come back. It definitely really is something that I wonder if ultimately, Mike, going forward is going to pick up some momentum. We've talked with folks in the hotel industry. We talked with the head of Hilton, Chris Nassetta, talked about how digitization was already happening in their world, but because of what happened with the virus, it's going to go even more quickly. So what are the trends that you think were already happening, but it's just going to happen even more so because of what we've just lived through and aren't still out of, really?
Well, that's a great question, Carol. So I was actually on the road last week, and I met with two clients, the CEO of Red Robin and the CEO of Noodles. And, interesting conversation we had is if you think about the ability or willingness of a consumer to use the phone to order up food, and whether it's takeaway or it's delivered by a food delivery service, or in some cases you might order it remotely and go to the restaurant, sit down, have it placed at your table. But I think some of the sit-down restaurants, like a Red Robin, where generally their service was you went into their restaurant and sat, and very little takeout, very little delivery. Noodles a little bit more. I talked to the CEO at Firehouse Subs today, where they had actually started that shift. But what happened literally overnight? So Firehouse Subs was running roughly 40% was takeaway or delivery, and they thought that was kind of the numbers in that range where it might stay. And then literally overnight, the in-house dining went to zero. So you literally couldn't go to a Firehouse Sub, you couldn't go to a Red Robin, you couldn't go to a Noodles when everybody had to shelter in place. And so one of the ways that it was described to me was by these executives is we just accelerated the learning curve for our customers by 2 to 3 years, where now they're very comfortable ordering with their mobile device, ordering online, ordering over the internet, and either picking up the food or having it delivered. And where that might have been just the younger generations in the past, now everybody's trained how to operate in that mode.
Yeah. And so what does that ultimately do for your business, Mike? I mean, does it change the way you allocate some of your R&D money? Does it change your customer set? What sort of shifts does it cause for you?
Oh, absolutely. So we actually, about a year and a half ago, we started an initiative called Digital First, where everything that we built, again, you think about us, we're point-of-sale devices. People think of us as a hardware device that sits at a restaurant or sits at a store. You think about an ATM, which is a physical device. You think about a self-checkout. So we really started to make the shift towards, we believe everybody wants to be digital first, or we really focus on the mobile device. And so we've been doing that the last 18 months. When my team brings me a proposal to invest in a product, whether it's digital banking, whether it's the ability to scan a check remotely, whether it's the ability to interact with a gas station pump, as we talked about earlier, if they don't include a digital first component, meaning, and I always hold up my mobile phone and I go, this is what digital first means, we have to be investing there first. So we've started that shift. This is clearly going to accelerate that shift for our customers, who then, we're B2B, so our customers are servicing the end consumers who are, as I said, being rapidly trained in how to use a mobile device to interact with everything.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, I just feel like we're all going to ultimately walk around with our own little iPad, or I guess our phone, right?
Yeah,
and just
it's really the phone.
I mean, it really is the phone at this point. Mike, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Mike is president and CEO of NCR, joining us on the phone from Atlanta. And I do think, right, like, think about how much we already do by our phones.
Totally.
And I mean, it got us as a family. We weren't on something like Apple Pay. We're now on it.
Yep.
Because we're ultimately trying to, not have to deal with credit cards. And I think cash, which we have been slowly moving towards a cashless society. We have to make sure that those, people who often still use a lot of cash, again, this gets to inequalities and injustices in our society, that make sure that they are part of our financial system. So we shall see, Jason, how it all plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we got a great hour coming up. Last hour of the show, back-to-back ballers, as we might say. Alan Patricoff back with us, one of the best-known venture capitalists out there. Also, big Democratic fundraiser. Want to talk politics, tech with him. And then Paul Reiser. I have been a huge fan of his for so long. I've been watching this new show that he has on Netflix called The Kaminsky Method. So excited to.
I love him from Mad About You. My husband and I used to watch. I just saw Seinfeld, though, that showed George getting a girlfriend who was like really into Mad About You, and he was like, "Oh man, I'm now part of a couple."
All right. For those of you listening in New York and San Francisco, watching on YouTube, Bloomberg Business Week continues. If you're listening on 99.1 in DC, Sound On with Kevin Cirilli is coming up next. Stick with us. This is Bloomberg.
When Bloomberg Surveillance interviews experts.
When you buy tech online and you want to make sure you get exactly what you need, would you rather talk to an algorithm, or to someone called Al, or Derek, or Sanjay, or Sue, or one of our other tech experts on Shop Live, Curry's PC World's online video call experience.
Hey, I'm Ali. How can I help?
Isn't it nice to get expert advice from another human being before you buy? They're just a click away. Curry's PC World. Talk to our tech experts online with Shop Live.
TfL has a plan to help London reopen carefully, safely and sustainably. You can do your bit by continuing to work from home if you can and avoiding public transport. If you have to use public transport, from today you must now wear a face covering at all times. Avoid peak hours and wash your hands before and after travel. For everyone's safety, we regularly clean our services with antiviral disinfectant and will be providing hand sanitizer across our network. For more information, search TfL's Restart Plan. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Picture this. Small businesses on eBay are working to
get things moving.
Sending spices to novice cooks.
Hairbands to kids. Desks for home offices.
Delivering the goods.
Shipping footballs. Fruit trees.
And dishwashers.
Thousands of small businesses on eBay are helping to keep the nation going. They are individually brilliant, stronger as one. Buy, sell, eBay.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Uncle Ben's rice, 250 grams for just £1. And our Butcher's Selection chicken breast fillets, only £3.40 for 650 grams. Why not whack it in the wok? At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
Enjoy peace of mind with Ford. Relax and think about 3 months deferred payment on a new vehicle. Visualize an additional 3 months cash back. Breathe deeply and let 0% APR representative on selected vehicles wash over you. That's peace of mind from Ford. Current promotion ends 30th of June. Search Ford Peace of Mind for details.
Only available with Ford credit on selected finance plans. Exclusions and deposit restrictions may apply.
Buckle up, race fans.
NASCAR is back in the driver's seat.
And you can cut straight to the action here.
With the Performance Racing Network on TuneIn, you can hear PRN's live coverage of some of this year's top events.
As NASCAR's top drivers, Kevin Harvick,
Clint Boyer, and more get back on the track.
Search Performance Racing Network to listen and see upcoming races.
Of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. This headline from the Bloomberg Professional Service: Texas virus cases advanced 1.4%. That compares to the 7-day average of 2.3%. Also, Lennar is reporting orders for new homes that beat estimates for the second quarter, with the company's business rebounding in recent weeks after the pandemic put a freeze on the housing market. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advanced today. Volatile session after the Federal Reserve followed through on a pledge to buy corporate bonds under an emergency lending program. The S&P 500 index advanced 0.8% after swinging from a loss of as much as 2.5% amid concern about a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic. Did score a gain of as much as 1.3%, again ending higher by 0.8%. The Dow up 157 points today, up by 0.6%, reversing a loss of as much as 3% in the early going. NASDAQ up 137 points, up today by 1.4%. 10-year down 5/30 seconds with a yield of 0.72%. Gold, little change, $17.25 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 2.2%, $37.07 a barrel. Wall Street, meanwhile, is looking ahead to tomorrow's retail sales data. Emily Rowland is head of capital markets research at JH Investments.
We know that the consumer drives the U.S. economy, and the more jobs that we have, the more likely it is that consumers are willing to spend. I think retail sales data tomorrow is going to be critical to help us understand how resilient the consumer has been. We've seen some signs that, consumer sentiment's picking up off of very, very low levels. But in our view, that really needs to continue in order to see this recovery play out.
It has been a volatile series. Economists expect retail sales to jump 8% in May from the previous month. Again, that number breaks 8:30 a.m. Wall Street time. Complete coverage when we get that retail sales data point right here on Bloomberg Radio. BP will make the biggest write-down on the value of its business since the Deepwater Horizon disaster a decade ago, as the coronavirus pandemic hurts long-term oil demand and accelerates the shift to cleaner energy. BP shares today did fall by 1.6% among some of the big well-known oil majors. ExxonMobil, little change, down less than 0.1%. Elsewhere in the industry, EOG Resources down 0.7%, and Pioneer Natural Resources fell 2.7%. Recapping, the equities higher, S&P up 25, a gain of 0.8%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. So delighted to have back with us Alan Patricoff. We caught up with him April 1st. And of course, here we are now, mid-June. He is an early venture capitalist. He helped build and grow such companies, American Online, Apple Computer, Audible. He's chairman emeritus and co-founder of Graycroft Ventures. And he joins us on the phone in New York City. Alan, it is good to have you back with us. A couple months have passed, or almost. And 2.5 months. A lot has happened. How's your world?
My world is great. You're going to remind me what I said on April 1st, so I either look smart or stupid.
No.
I honestly, I think I actually have been on the right side of where I thought this thing was going, and I think I've been relatively consistent, particularly recently, in that I'm not carried away by this, quote, irrational exuberance, unquote, which has carried the markets up 1,000 points one day and then down 500. A perfect example is I was watching early this morning, and the expected openings were going to be up. Were going to be down 400 points, and we ended up 150. It's very hard to operate as an investor in this kind of market. Fortunately, I deal in the private market, where in the venture world you don't see those kind of fluctuations. It's more business as usual.
And so what does business as usual look like in a world where nobody or very few people can or will get on airplanes? Due diligence, we know, Alan, from talking to you and many of our other friends in the business, is typically a look them in the eye sort of prospect. You're going into a long-term, very intimate relationship and a complicated relationship. So how do you do it in this world we're living in now?
Obviously, it's a lot harder because if you're in the stock market and you wake up and you find out you made a mistake, you just sell, assuming they're somewhat liquid markets. When you're in our business, the day you sign the contract, you're a partner in the business. And so I think that puts a premium on really spending dedicated time to really understanding the companies and the people who are running them, which is really the most critical element. And I think that due diligence is that much more in depth. And let me tell you that the venture business, I was concerned. A month or so, I wrote a piece saying, what's going to happen where we're going to end up? All of a sudden, I realized investing in companies that are private, that we're going to be long-term partners, and we will not have met the people face to face or as they say, and kick the tires. And so far, Graycroft, my firm, is making investments. We meet every Monday. We met today, and we made commitments to 1 or 2 new investments today. And last week we made 2 or 3, and we haven't met the CEOs. It's a little easier if you're in the company already and they're going for an extension of a previous round. That's easier. But even then, you have to do renewed due diligence to make sure that the issues are consistent with what you thought they were.
So you've made some new investments in new companies. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we continue. I made an investment in the podcast area just 10 days ago, a company called Veritonic, which is technology used by podcasters as well as terrestrial radio and the platforms. And in this case, I actually did have a brief half-hour meeting with the CEO before everything shut down. But other than that, I hadn't met the rest of his team or been to the facilities. But we spent a lot of time talking to customers all over the world, to understand better the company, which is, frankly, is available to us. When someone wants money, they're very happy to give you their customers or their suppliers or competitors, so you can freely find. You actually can find sometimes more information than you can when something's public.
Yeah. Right. So what about the other side of the equation, Alan, the exits? Are there buyers out there for things that you already own?
Well, yes, the answer is yes. We have